Thank you. We are a little bit late starting with our August 19th Select Board meeting. Michelle Pryor, the chair, joined by John Fallon, vice chair, Anthea Brady, Bill McGonigal, Mike Betancourt, and town manager Beth Rudolph. So thanks for your patience, those of you in the hallway. We had a bunch of things to get through in executive session this evening. We're going to take most of the agenda in order. The town manager has graciously offered to postpone her town manager report to a little bit later in our business agendas because we want to get through. We have a public hearing to get through, we have some appointments, and we do have some other presentations. So with that, we'll start with acceptance of donations, then we'll move into public comment, and then our public hearing.
All right, I move that we accept with gratitude donations in the amount of $1,000 from Kim Wallace on behalf of the Leading Edge Real Estate, Serrano Team, and Sven Anderson on behalf of the Anderson Group Realty to the Recreation Department for supplies at the Packer Ellis Tennis Courts as deemed necessary.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Move that we accept with gratitude an EEC stabilization grant of $4,083.33 from the Recreation Department for the Recreation Department Kid Connection WRAP EEC childcare license for the month of August.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move that we accept with gratitude an FY25 State 911 Department Support and Initiative grant of $65,826 from the state of Massachusetts to the Police Department.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I move that we accept with gratitude an FY25 State 911 Department Training Grant of $18,204.04 from the state of Massachusetts to the Police Department.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
I move that we accept with gratitude an in-kind donation of a bench to be installed in Sheffalo Park from Heather Daglio in honor of her parents, Jack and Roseanne Innes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Aye.
And lastly, I move that we accept a federal grant award from the Environmental Protection Agency in the amount of $217,701 to cover the town's costs associated with installation of stormwater infiltration trenches.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you, John, for that.
Welcome.
Next up, as I said, we're going to just postpone the town manager's report till probably item 5 or 6 on our business agenda. So is anyone here for public comment this evening? Okay, come on up. Lauren and Rich, go ahead, then we'll go third. Oh, you're coming up together, fair enough. Okay.
If that's all right. I mean, it's the same topic.
We're passing around. Thank you.
If you could, state your name and where you live and keep your public comment to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Hello, Lauren Herman, Ginn Road.
Richard Rohan, Swanton Street.
Thank you.
Sure.
Good evening, and thank you for this chance to formally introduce a local nonprofit organization, the Friends of Winchester Recreation and Community Services, Incorporated. I'd also like to thank the many people who have given their time and treasure to this entity over the many, almost 34 years of its existence. Our mission is to support the growth and continuing operation of recreation opportunities in Winchester. The Friends organization was established as a registered 501c3 in 1991, with a recent transition in leadership as many former board members have retired, and we are grateful for their service. The Friends formerly supported the operation of a Winchester Youth Center, which was located at the McCall Middle School until the most recent expansion in 2017. We continue a strong partnership with Kid Connection Preschool and have provided many grants to other local entities, including over $80,000 in the prior fiscal year. We believe that recreation is a core element of community vibrancy. Our current board members are active in our community, and we are driven to raise the bar on investments in recreational facilities for the benefit of all residents. There are a multitude of priorities for raising the level of Winchester's recreation facilities to best in class. First, our sights are set on continuing the restoration of existing spaces. Second, we envision reclaiming a community third space for teens, an element that is included in the town master plan accepted by the planning board in 2020. We also believe that collaboration is essential to achieving all of these goals. And to that end, we are here to introduce ourselves and invite others to join us. Our next fundraiser, the first annual Friends of Winchester Recreation Pickleball Tournament, is set for September 28th on the newly resurfaced Leonard Field courts. Registration will take place on our website. The flyers that I have handed out to you all include a QR code, which will take you straight there. And for anyone listening to the recording of this meeting, the URL is friendsofwinchesterrecreation.org. Thank you. We look forward to seeing you there.
Great. And I hope you have good weather on the 28th.
I do too. We have a rain date of September 29th, just in case.
That's good to read into the record as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
And congratulations on getting it back up and running.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jeremy?
Hi, everyone. My name is Jeremy Elliott, and I live at 247 Washington Street. And back in February of this year, I submitted a petition to the Select Board to consider eliminating the overnight parking ban and replacing it with an overnight ban for snow removal purposes only. Since that time, it's now the end of summer. Summer is the busiest time for people to move in and out of the communities. So last week, I had new neighbors move into the unit next to me. They're from Florida. They have one assigned parking space, 2 vehicles, and they had no way of knowing that there's an overnight parking ban. But that's not going to prevent the police department from ticketing their vehicle all winter long. One of the shames here is that they never had the possibility of having a conversation that says, hey, we have 2 cars, 1 space, and there's a ban, maybe we should look for something else that's more convenient for us. So what I want to suggest tonight is I'm not saying that we must remove the overnight parking ban, but what I am saying is I think we can do better. There's a couple of things, especially about the overnight ban, that we're not doing well at all, and one of those is the efficiency of what it's for. I just got a report from Matt tonight. Thank you very much for that. And actually, I thought it was very good and explained a bit. And yes, it's about making sure their cars are off the road during snowstorms. As I posted in January of this year, I was able to find 70 vehicles on the road overnight during a snowstorm in this town, and that was covering maybe 30 to 40% of the streets. So the effectiveness is something that the town would like to see better, and I think we can do that. Another thing is fairness. As I sent to the Select Board last week, for the overnight parking tickets, it looked like roughly 50% of the tickets issued last year were issued in a very small set of about 5 or 6 blocks. I don't think that that enforcement had anything to do with what it's supposed to be doing. And I don't know what we're doing, but I think those 2 issues need to be addressed. And instead of me sending ideas to the board that are either ignored or shot down, I think we just need to come to this idea that something can be done, and it's just a matter of finding a solution that works for everybody. And that's really what I'm about tonight. And after reading Matt's report, I'm actually like, okay, you know what? There probably is something. I mean, just kind of an idea hit in my head, and I might actually, maybe we can have a discussion later, some kind of working group, but I think we can do something, and I really would like there to be some sort of agreement that, yes, let's try to figure this out and get it done. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else here for public comment? Nope. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is have our public hearing on Eversource's grant of location for a new pole in Dunster Lane. Jackie, I think you're up. And Matt, thank you, Matt.
How are you?
Good, good to see you back.
Nice to be back. NSTAR Electric, this is Jackie Duffy from NSTAR Electric, DBA Eversource Energy. We respectfully request a grant of location for the installation of a new pole, 191/8 on Dunster Lane. This work is requested by the customer because the pole is in the middle of the driveway at 64 Dunster Lane.
So moving it that far away from its driveway, or how far is it? I mean, I know you gave us a map, but roughly is it being moved?
It's only 19 feet.
Okay. I know, Matt, everything looks to be in order in the application. Obviously, we've heard from neighbors. Any other comments or anything else you want to add for context on this request?
I mean, just the existing pole is in the middle of the driveway, so the proposal is to relocate the pole so it's no longer in the middle of the driveway, and it's substantially between the two properties, so it's not like in the way of anything. And
Okay.
we had no other comments.
Any questions for Eversource or Matt? Okay.
All right, I move that we approve the Eversource grant of location to install a new pole on Dunster Lane, approximately 217 feet from the intersection with Henry Street in the vicinity of 64 Dunster Lane, within the public right-of-way.
We can get a second, but before we do, I'm going to ask if anybody in the audience wants to comment on the public hearing. I forgot to give the opportunity to the audience. So no, the motion can be made, but I don't see any other show of hands if anyone else wants to be heard, so. Okay. John has made a motion. It needs a second.
Second.
Any additional discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Don't go far, Matt. Okay. Next up, we're going, in our business agenda, we're going to do interview for the Cable Advisory Committee. So Matthew, if you're here, please come up. Thank you. So if you could introduce yourself and where you live. We have your application, we have your statement of interest, but anything else you'd want to say about your background or interest in the role, or anything you want to tell us?
Sure.
And thank you for volunteering.
Yeah. It's Matt Waterhouse. I live at Simons Road. I've lived there my entire life, so, well, I guess, lived closer to Ginfield for 2 years. So I've lived there for now 27 years. And a close friend of mine, I believe, is chair of the committee, or has been on the committee for a while, Ashley Stevens. And he suggested that it'd be a good opportunity. And it really aligns with a lot of my interests. I work as a financial advisor right now, so I often will enjoy helping people as well as, poring over the numbers. So I think it's a good combination of that, and I would love to be considered.
Have you served in any other any volunteer role in town before? Is this your first
This will be
foray
my
into
first.
committee work? Okay, but you know Ashley, so
Yes.
he's explained what the requirements are.
Yes.
Good. Okay. Any questions for Matt? I think Patty, the question I would have is, with this appointment, we would be at a full complement on that committee at this point?
That's correct.
This fills that out? Okay. Anybody questions for Matt? Okay, thank you for volunteering, and we'll probably take a motion and make a vote, so,
Thank you.
yeah, thanks.
All right. I move that we appoint Matthew Waterhouse to the position of the Cable Advisory Committee with a term to expire June 30th, 2027.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, welcome, enjoy the meetings. Thanks for your patience tonight. Okay, next up, Sims Corner, Matt and Bob and others.
All right, well, wherever.
Yes, and Matt, before we jump into this, is because I'm go through that intersection like 5 times a week walking. Are we mostly trying to solve a pedestrian issue, or is it a combination?
I'm sure Rich will talk a little bit more about it, but I think we're trying to solve a lot of different issues, and
Yeah.
one element is the pedestrian issue. I walk through there a lot too, and there's not a set of complete crosswalks around the Rotary. The ones at Grove Street and Bacon Street, not really visible to people if you're in the crosswalk because of the way the configuration is. So I think that's definitely one element of a potential project. There's also some crash history there. There's some speed coming into the roundabout. There's visibility issues. It's
Stealing my thunder.
Yeah, no, it was.
You don't have to sell me on it. I live right by there. It's
Bill
a
and I
mess.
both, we live on either side of it. It's
Yeah,
there.
I can't drive an Uber. I don't think I've ever been in an Uber that actually navigated it correctly.
I think I said at Capitol, the first time I went through it, I thought I was like, okay, and the more I go through it, the more nervous I get. And I go through there walking, biking, and driving, and all of them feel uncomfortable to me.
That same feeling when I first moved here.
My son got his learner's permit 6 months ago, and we took him through.
Driving.
I was in the back seat, my husband in the front seat, and he was driving. We were both telling him different things to do in the intersection. So I was like a good explanation of how confusing it is.
Don't quit your J job and become a driving instructor.
I will not. No worries there.
Okay.
Yes.
So, thank you. If you want to take it away, it's.
Sure. So Rich Benevento, Senior Vice President at Ty and Bond. I know both Matt and Bob. I've done a lot of work in Watertown. We've secured about $100 million for Watertown over the years. And while Bob was in Peabody, we have a $30 million project going on Central Street in Peabody that's currently under construction. So we're going to talk a little bit about the process of applying for funding for Sims Corner. So just a quick agenda tonight, a little bit about the project need. Some of you have already talked about that. What the goals of the project will be. I have just a graphic of where the project limits are and some of the traffic volumes. We did get some traffic volumes out there. And then funding process, what we're going to need to do to actually get the project the attention of Mass DOT and the MPO as well, and then we'll just talk a little bit about next steps. So in terms of project need, this Sims Corner project was already identified in your town transportation plan, so it's no secret to anybody that you certainly need to do some things out there to correct some of the deficiencies. Although it's not a high crash location on Mass DOT's list, it is a local crash location, so we know that. And then some of the other boxes that we like to check when we're applying for funding is proximity to school. It's near transit locations. It's on a bus route. And of course, it lacks traffic calming out there as well and complete streets measures. And what do we talk about traffic calming and complete streets measures? Accommodating all users. So we're not just trying to move vehicles through the intersection, which we know we have to do safely and efficiently, but we have to accommodate the other users, the transit folks that are using the bus route, the bikes that are traveling through town, and of course pedestrians as well. So it's really a comprehensive look at the improvements. So again, it was in your transportation plan and identified as right there, traffic calming, intersection improvement, safety, all of those things that we would be trying to improve the intersection. It was also part of a petition, I understand. There were 335 comments that came in. I only added a couple of pages to this thing, but there were several pages of folks that recognize that there's a need to do something out there. So that is going to be very, very important as we go through the funding process, because DOT and the MPO want to know that there's local support for the project. I came in to meet with the town manager and Matt a few weeks ago. I actually did a project in Winchester many, many years ago, and it was, although Winchester has had DOT projects and DOT assistance, a project like this I worked on in 1995, and it was the reconstruction of Washington Street. I had hair then, so it goes a ways back. And I think Chad Morrow was here at the time, but I know Mark was still here. Mark Toogood was here at the time, so that was quite a project, quite a long time ago. So some of the goals, some of the Sim Corner goals, right? Obviously, improve traffic safety. On all of these projects, safety is always paramount. We will sacrifice convenience for safety all the time, right? Traffic circulation and congestion, it's an octopus of an intersection. Where's the roundabout? Where's the throughway? Where is all? I mean, it's kind of a mismatch of things out there, right? Optimize parking. And I always put this on here because whenever we do a project, currently we're involved in the reconstruction of Woburn Center. It's on the tip for $20 million, I believe. That's going to be a big issue in downtown Woburn of putting parking in versus bike lanes and eliminating parking. Where's that balance? So I always like to keep that in there because we want to just make sure we're aware of that there may be parking issues out there as well. Safety for vulnerable road users. Now, I was at a public hearing and a community, and vulnerable road users, people were thinking that those were people with disabilities. Those are included in the category of vulnerable road users. But vulnerable road users are bikes, peds, anyone not surrounded by a bunch of metal in a car that can protect them from a crash. So anyone other than in a car or a truck is considered a vulnerable road user. So we want to make sure that we're providing safety for those vulnerable road users. We just talked about pedestrians, we're talking about bicycles, all of that need to be considered as well. And then again, sidewalk, streetscape, and placemaking. You know, where can we do that? Where can we provide some placemaking? Where can we improve the sidewalks? How are they going to be improved? I'm presuming that Winchester has a complete streets policy, an adopted complete streets policy. So as out of any of these projects, it's sort of incumbent upon the community to be recognizing all of these users. And then, as we mentioned, incorporating those concepts. If this becomes a DOT-funded project, we say, yes, we will fund this project, we will have to accommodate complete streets concepts as part of it. Having been out there, lastly, but certainly not in the list of priority here, to preserve the character of that area and the historic nature of that area. I know when I was out there with Matt, there's it looks like it used to be a horse trough of something out there, right? Yep. There's a huge maple tree right there. I think it's a maple tree. It's a beautiful maple tree. All of those things we need to consider as we're going through improvements here. I joke about this all the time when we're doing projects like this. Oftentimes we'll get comments, we want you to fix it, but don't change anything. So we need to be mindful of all of these things as we're going through this process, right? Again, this is just sort of a basic outline of the project limits where you can see it incorporates Sims Corner for sure, but also some of the legs of those contributory roadways that are coming into Sims Corner. So we'll be defining that a little further as we go through the funding request. But generally, if we were doing Sims Corner as part of a project, it's likely we would have to go up these streets just because they're the approach roadways to that major intersection. And then just in terms of traffic volumes, you can see that on that main line, there's over 10,000 vehicles a day. That's quite a bit of traffic, right, to have to deal with, and then navigating through that. And if you're looking at this graphic, the 10,000 vehicles on Bacon going up to Main Street, it's almost like a straight shot, so they don't get the benefit of the traffic calming effects of a roundabout because the roundabout's like off to the side, right? So these are some of the things that we would want to be looking at. And even some of the side streets, 6,000 vehicles on Main Street, and then even some of the side streets, 3,000 on Grove, yeah. I'm trying to see if I actually spelled that properly, yeah. So anyway, what's involved with the funding process? So funding programs in Massachusetts, which we're probably all aware of, and I know, Beth, I know you are, and Matt and Bob are for sure, but there's the TIP process, then there's MassWorks Infrastructure, which is now Housing Works, Complete Streets, Transportation Bond Bill, which always been kind of interesting over the years because it was authorized spending without an appropriation. So a lot of projects got stuck in the bond bill and never went anywhere. And then, of course, Chapter 90 and then local funds. But in this case, we're going to be focusing on federal and state funding, the TIP process, right, which I've been doing for many decades, starting with Washington Street as an urban systems program project. So what's involved with the program? First of all, it's 100% construction funded. 80% of that funding comes from the federal government, and 20% comes from the state. It's a 5-year program, the 5-year TIP element. Right now, FY26 to FY30. By the time we got through this process and got it programmed on the TIP, likely be the 27 to 31 TIP, but the question is just getting it programmed on the project. I've been very successful. Many of the projects, including the ones I spoke about, Mount Auburn Street in Watertown, Central Street in Peabody, we actually got programmed on the TIP before the design even started because we were able to articulate the need and the benefit of those projects. It's, the program is fiscally constrained. By the way, it's a federal fiscal year, so October 1st to September 30th. So let's say the project was on the FY30 tip. That would be advertised anytime between October 1st of 29 to September 30th of 30. Okay, so the program is fiscally constrained, which means you can't have more projects in it than you have funding for, which is why there's always that horse training during May of each year when the MPO and all the cities and towns are in there trying to vie for their projects to get programmed on the tip. And then to be advertised for construction through Mass DOT, it has to be on the tip. So you can't get the project moving until it's actually programmed. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the responsibilities as you're going through this. Project programming is a two-part process. The first part is that the project need and project information forms go to Mass DOT Project Review Committee. And then the second phase is project programming by the Boston MPO. So it's really a two-part process. MassDOT determines that the project's eligible for funding, but the MPO are actually the ones that program it for that funding, right? So it's a two-part process. I'm a regular at the MPO meetings, by the way. So the PRC meets 3 to 4 times a year. There's a pre-PRC meeting that usually meets 3 to 4 weeks before the full PRC meeting. They score the project, and then the full PRC meets, and they determine if the project's eligible. So, so the project review committee met in May. We were hoping to meet in September, but we just don't have the time right now. So right now, we're going to be looking at the December PRC meeting, because we really have to be getting stuff into the pre-PRC like within the next week or two, and we're just not going to make it. So what are the municipal responsibilities when you engage a project like this? You're responsible for design, environmental permitting, and right-of-way. That's the municipal responsibility. It's all designed in concurrence with Mass DOT. So when I say that, it's not one person at Mass DOT looking at it. It's all the departments in Boston. So it's right-of-way, complete streets, traffic, highway design, environmental. Everybody's looking at it. And then all of those same groups are in the district office in Arlington, and they're also looking at it. So it's a pretty in-depth process. And those reviews occur at the 25, 75, 100% in plan specs and estimates. That's where we're trying to get to, PS&E. The design cost is generally 12 to 15% of the construction value, because now we're doing right-of-way plans as a requirement of the design. So let's say the project is $6 million. If you go to the outside part of that, 15% of $6 million is going to be about $750,000 of design, right? Did I have that right?
900,000.
Sorry?
900,000.
900,000. So in any case, that is the municipal responsibility. The preliminary design, a lot of people say, oh, it's 25% design. That's generally about, you're halfway through the design once you get to the preliminary design. And that is the trigger to have the design public hearing, which is an important milestone of the project. Now, having said that, during the process, there's a lot of public information meetings, so we just want to make sure that we're ensuring public support. So as I said, design must start within 2 years of MassDOT's approval of the project, PRC approval. All of the work that the town has to do is Chapter 90 eligible. You have to meet MassDOT design criteria, and if you've been involved with any of that, sometimes that can be a rigorous task, but we're up to that challenge, right? Again, as we're going through it, it has to meet Mass DOT's Healthy Transportation Policy Directive, meaning we have to accommodate all users, as we talked about. Again, you saw where those reviews are. And then there's the official design public hearing once we get an approved 25% design. Public meetings are vital as part of this process. We don't like to wait to show this to the public at the design public hearing. We want to make sure that we're showing them the design as we're going through in progress meetings and things like that, to sit down so that the public can ask questions, so that we're tailoring the project to the specific needs of Winchester. So it's important to have those informational meetings as we're going along, because we don't want people showing up at the design public hearing that are opposed to the project. We want to have addressed all the issues and people are there in support. Now, having said that, and Matt and I were having this discussion earlier, all of these projects are a balance. No one is going to walk out of the room or out of one of these meetings and say, I got everything I wanted. It has to be a balance, because we're accommodating bikes, peds, vehicles, right-of-way, all of these kind of things. So we want to make sure that it's a balance, and we're trying to articulate that as we go through the process. Projects must advance in order to not be dropped off the tip. We've seen a lot of projects at the MPO meetings, and Beth, you've probably seen this over the years as you guys have. The town kind of sits on it, or the city sits on it, and nothing's happening. And this is a very competitive process. Everybody's vying for those funds. And you heard me mention earlier that it's fiscally constrained, so we want to make sure that we're showing progress once the project is being approved. And then, as I said, you can see up there, MassDOT can deactivate the project, which means you have to go through that whole PRC process again. So, next steps. Right now, we're in the process of preparing the funding requests. We will start some traffic analysis. We already did counts, and we actually got them done before school got out, which was important. We want to do the counts while school was in session. We'll be coming up with some concepts. Now, again, the concepts are for MassDOT to get a sense of the project. It's by no means the detailed concept development that we'll go through once we get going on design. This is really just to show MassDOT that the town is thinking about various ways to make improvements out there. We'd provide a preliminary order of magnitude cost estimate. Tonight is actually one of your first meetings, right? This is sort of letting the public know a little bit about that the town is considering advancing improvements at this location. So we want to make sure that we have community engagement and are able to demonstrate that in our funding request. And then we'll submit it to PRC, and we'll also attend the MPO meetings once it gets approved, because you really need to advocate for the project. And Matt and Bob have seen me at these meetings. They score the projects, and I've actually challenged the scores. I want more points for the projects. And then again, once that's finished, you would then move into your preliminary design phase, and then really that's where the pedals to the metal, and we start moving the project forward. And then, of course, after preliminary design, just get into final design and advertising. Once the project is designed, it's out of the hands of the community. MassDOT funds the construction. They staff it with their own resident engineers. They handle all of the construction. We have, so the designer would have some involvement, like reviewing shop drawings. A lot of communities now, like in the case of PBD and Watertown, we are attending the regular meetings with DOT and the contractor, because we want to make sure that they're following what the town is looking for, and so that you can also give advance notice to the community, like 2-week look-aheads, like what can the public expect next week, all of that sort of thing. So it's a pretty detailed process as we go through it. Right now, we want to get MassDOT to recognize this project as a viable project and something that's necessary for the community. So, and I think my last slide said questions.
So how much of the town's capital is at risk during the design process until you get approved? None? 25% of 900,000, or?
The town funds the full design.
So we're on the hook for everything, even though the project may never come to fruition. We're not going to fund it.
Well, it's staged. So right now, we will be under contract to assist with getting the project funded,
Yes.
which is, relatively speaking, short money considering the whole thing. Some consultants will come in and say that, the design is $900,000 or whatever it's going to be,
Yeah.
right? I parse it out. So the only thing that we would be doing initially is the preliminary design phase. That's it. We're not gonna go to the final design phase, because the project can morph. Who knows what will happen? But once the project is approved by PRC, and it has to get programmed on the tip, it's a process. I've never seen in my over 40 years of doing this that a project was designed and then put on the shelf and never built. If MassDOT recognizes the project and it gets PRC approval, and we're working with the MPO to get the project funded, the risk is low.
No, I understand. What do you think to get, if you can, an estimate to get to PRC approval? Is it $200,000?
No, it's $50,000.
Chapter
Okay.
90 money.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
So the first
Fine.
part is short money. Once we get
Right.
PRC approval and we want to move through, probably we'll have a 25% design contract.
That's right.
And then we'll move to 75 or to 100% and then PS&E.
Right.
I think, Matt, what did you request in the next capital
So I
cycle?
put a capital request in for $250,000.
So that would be kind of the first step. And then, I've been through a few of these projects. I came at the tail end of the Washington Street construction. The Tri-Community Greenway project was funded through the TIP, as well as the 4 intersections, the 3 on Route 3 that Mass did, and the intersection of Church, Bacon, and Fletcher. Those projects took many years. I mean, it's a process, right? Hopefully this is a smaller number. It's not a $20 million project like Woburn Center project is, and it can fit in,
Mm-hmm.
maybe they have some funding
And with
this year. where this project
And one
can
other
fit in.
comment to make too, once this project gets approved and it's on Mass DOT's list and they assign a project number to it, they're banging away, the project managers at 10 Park Plaza are banging away too, because they want to see this project move forward. They want to see progress. And so it's, the only way it would just sit and do nothing is if the town just decided that they didn't want to push the project forward.
I do think, I just want to mention that the other piece that we have to pay for is the right-of-way, so that's if we have to do, rarely, but we have had to do it, like for the bikeway project, permanent takings or even temporary easements, so we have to have appraisals done, and we have to pay property owners for that impact on their property, so that,
Yeah.
we're also on the hook for that piece of it.
And if since the state's doing it, they own any kind of cost overrun, or if they discover, under the road it's polluted, they own all of that, right? There's this, that doesn't come back to town, all of a sudden we get hit with a bill for $700,000 because of some kind of overrun that we have no control of the project.
And the key was control. So the thing that, so this is a 10% rule. If the project goes over 10% of the base bid, the town's on the hook for that. But it's not for things that were unforeseen. So for example, right now in Peabody, there's a provision in the contract for contaminated soil, right? That if there was a project overrun because of that, the town's not on the hook for that.
Right.
What they get upset about is scope creep. So you saw those project limits. Now all of a sudden, we're halfway down Main Street and they're like, timeout. We're not gonna, that would be a project overrun because the project, there's scope creep on the project. One of the other things too that is a benefit to these projects that I didn't mention is doing non-participating work. Well, what's that? So let's say, for example, the water main out there is 150 years old, and gee, it's a good time to replace the water main because the road's gonna be dug up. You're just paying for the pipe. You're not paying to replace the road on top of it. So a lot of communities, if there's infrastructure work that needs to be done, they'll do it as part of the project. It's not participating work, but they'll do it as part of the project. It means the town has to establish a force account, and then you pay for that portion of the project. The town pays for that. So those are benefits of the project as well.
Thank you.
For example, on the MassDOT project on Route 3, we paid to upgrade the mast arms from their standard, silver, aluminum mast arms to the decorative mast arms we had. That was a non-participating
Yeah,
item.
that would be other things, like if you, decorative street lights or things like that. So things that are sort of outside the norm. This project would include, as I mentioned, new roadway, sidewalks, curbing, streetscape, plantings, all that. So let's say we came up with a planting plan. Halverson is part of Ty and Bond now, a landscape architect firm, and they'll allow certain things, but let's say there was some elaborate thing, we want to improve whatever's going to be in the middle there, there might be some contribution the town's going to have to kick in because it's a little bit above and beyond what normally they would pay for.
Thank you.
Mike or Bill?
I have time for 150 questions.
Oh, I could ask you
No, you
150
don't.
questions, but as
If
I,
you have 150 questions, you can leave the room and have that conversation. You do not have that time.
no, but living close to Sims Corner, it's obvious it's a public safety issue. It just doesn't make any sense. People don't know how to drive it, don't know how to walk it, anything else. So you don't need to convince me that something needs to be done. It's just a matter of us being able to find the capital to be able to fund that. And I know, Matt, you've put in the $250,000 request to the Capital Planning Committee, and they're currently going through their ranking. Do you have any idea right now where this might sit in terms of?
Do not.
And what happens if they don't place this in front of town meeting?
didn't get placed in front of town meeting, we'd either have to find an alternative funding source, or I'd probably end up putting it again next year.
Yeah, and I think the timing of the so the PRC meeting is in December, and when do we find out about whether we get added?
Usually, if the PRC meeting is in December, you'd find out pretty soon right after that. But let's say you found out in mid-January, remember what that other slide said, you have 2 years to start the project before they'll drop it. So it gives you time to go through that. And again, this work is chapter, I don't know how much you get in chapter 90, Bob, but I mean.
Not
it's-
enough to fund this, yeah.
It is eligible for that.
So I mean, I think ideally, you know, if capital is able to fund it, we'd get the money, and assuming we get PRC approval, we'd have capital fund it in the spring. If not, as Matt said, we put it in as next year's request.
Once we get programmed on the tip, then we can tell them we get funding for construction. So I think at that point, they'd be more willing to put money towards the design, knowing that we have funding for construction.
I mean, it's
Usually it's the opposite way.
Yeah, it's an investment in a sense.
It's 12 or 15 cents on the dollar. I mean, I think anybody would take that investment, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just say the same thing. I appreciate the presentation. This is a great opportunity, and I hope we can find a way to get moving on it, even if capital doesn't fund it through its cycle this year. It's nice for us to have a funding strategy leading the way of a public works project, rather than, you know, identifying a problem then trying to figure out the money later. So it just seems like it's an opportunity we can't pass up in an area that is extremely high risk. So
Yeah,
thank you, appreciate it.
thank you. It's
Thank
my
you.
neighborhood. Please fix it tomorrow would be great.
Yeah.
But
Thank
don't
you for
change
coming
anything,
in.
right?
No, you can change,
Whatever you need.
the character of that roundabout can be completely thrown out. Mess. Up next.
All right.
You guys later. Yep.
Good luck.
Maybe we'll be back, Mike.
Anything
Planning board,
done while
thank
you're
you
out
for your
there?
patience.
Anything you want
Maybe
asked about?
grab a chair as you come up.
Thank you.
Only Taylor and Carrie can come, sorry, okay.
No, didn't actually.
Don't bring your chairs. You forgot your ball. Hi, and welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for waiting with us. We had a few things to get through, so I don't know who's going to start, but we do have your presentation. Thank you. We got that mailed out to us, so whoever wants to tee it up, if that's you, Carrie, or however you want to do it. Taylor?
I'm happy to say hello and thank you for giving the planning board time to update you on the North Main Street corridor rezoning, but I am going to immediately hand it over to our consultant from Form and Place, Michael Lang.
Thanks, Carrie. Good evening.
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 I've met a number of you. So I'm Michael Wang. I'm an architect and an urban planner with Form and Place, and I've had the pleasure of working with the town and the planning board for, I guess, about 2.5 years now. And I guess we're looking to give you an update on the current status of the North Main Street rezoning initiative tonight. And I have, thanks, Taylor. I have a handful of slides here, which I've been told ideally I would get through in about 10 minutes to allow time for...
Or get through half of them, whichever ones
Oh.
you'd like to talk to.
Okay, would you prefer it even shorter then? Okay. Well, anyway, I'll breeze through these very quickly. There are a few starting slides here that talk about the larger planning context, which include obviously the 2030 master plan, which identified the North Main Street corridor areas 4 and 5 on the map here as evolving opportunity areas. And the action plan that accompanied that called for making zoning changes that would allow for higher intensity development, including, thinking about increasing building heights, a wider range of uses, integrating mixed-use residential, et cetera. The MAPC then followed up with a 2021 study on the corridor, and again, recommending a loosening of restrictions and looking at a whole series of recommendations that involved everything from increased density to thinking about the quality of streetscapes and the walkability of the corridor. We joined the effort in early 2022, and quickly the planning board identified some key goals for the corridor. sort of growing on those previous studies, including mixed use, incentivizing ground floor commercial with residential above, primarily focusing the mixed-use component on the southern end of the corridor, which, as you can see on that map on the right, is within the half-mile radius of the MBTA station, so that's essentially south of Clark Street. There was a focus on housing, not only increasing density south of Clark, but really trying to offer a diversity of housing typologies, and a lot of communities refer to the missing middle of housing, everything between single family and the larger mid-rise typologies, and that's become a very common term as everybody's working through the MBTA communities projects. But also the contextual character of the corridor as seen as extremely important, and trying to understand what it is involved in getting the preferred development patterns on the corridor, moving away from auto-centric uses, creating well-defined streetscapes, and really working on the walkability and the connectivity to the CBD. Keep moving along here. So as we sort of dove into some feasibility studies for the corridor to really understand the capacity for various development sites, we looked at different ideas about density and typologies for housing, for residential and mixed use. You can see the top row is sort of less dense, everything from 4-unit buildings to mixed-use townhouse style typologies. To down on the lower level, you're getting into some of the higher densities, 40 to 50 dwelling units per acre. These are a couple of examples of projects that are just come online in Newton, in Newtonville, actually. So
when you come into a town, or just from a philosophical standpoint, do you want to have the higher density housing, let's say, start lower and then work its way up, much like from a street? You don't want to necessarily have a 5-story edifice on the street. You might start at 2 stories and work your way back, because you're telling us a story about the town as you come into it.
Mm-hmm.
And so what's the thinking behind that when you develop this plan? Or is it just like we're going to put as much housing and commercial as we can at the town line as we go towards the center? I know this is a dumb question, but I'm going to ask it anyhow.
No, nothing's a dumb question. And again, it's so, as you'll see as I get into this, it's so specific to various parts of the corridor. The corridor really evolves from the south when you're down closer to the CBD to across Swanton and up to the town line. And each one of those, it's sort of a thin buffer zone, if you will, to the surrounding neighborhoods.
Right.
And particularly on the west side, as you move north, you've got the single-family residential neighborhoods there. And so it's really critical to make sure that while you're providing a certain amount of definition to the corridor that you want to have a vibrant corridor, you're also thinking about the transition to the neighborhoods and respecting that. So
Okay.
So anyway,
Thank you. This was cool.
it's kind of has to do with the abutting context I think I've moved forward here a couple. Anyway, I'll keep going as quickly as I can here. We looked at some corridor studies. Actually, the image on the right shows studies that we did all the way from scaling all the way up to Cross Street. The image on the left is one many of you have seen before, which we did a series of feasibility studies on some existing parcels, but also looked at what would happen if you consolidated parcels and got some larger areas. So we're looking at sites that could be anywhere from a 1/4 acre, 1/2 acre, up to 2 and 2.5 acres in some cases, which don't necessarily exist today, but might be aggregated at some point. And obviously zoning would have to address all those potential conditions. So, and you've got different lengths of frontage, you've got different depths of lots, all those aspects. So we did a series of community meetings last winter and had conversations with the ZRAC, and the ZRAC put together an initial idea of 7 sub-districts and this gets to your question about what would be the character of each of these areas, perhaps along the corridor. And the E1 and W1, which are the red and purple down at the bottom of the screen there, are the areas where it was felt like more high-density mixed use with really active streetscapes was critical. It abuts, SCI areas and not the residential neighborhoods. And as you move to the north, I think there was a feeling in general that sort of lower density, still with some commercial, but not necessarily as intense as the south, would be appropriate. And those are a couple of visualizations that we did. So in the midst of all this, the MBTA Communities initiative flew in, and we had the map you see there that has the 4 different MOD sub-districts. The MOD 3, the purple, actually is exactly the southern part from Swanton down to Skilling of this initiative. And so this is the MBTA was an overlay, and what we're looking at is how to rewrite the underlying zoning to incentivize things that that are the goals that were identified. And because the MBTA communities work is really allowing multifamily as of right. So you'll see the MOD yellow column there gives you certain dimensional criteria like stories, maximum height, which are very similar to the GBD2 today. And so in order to incentivize mixed use, which is a big component of it, we are looking at what can you do to increase both the mixed use and the residential components. And so one of them ideas here is a visualization looking at up to 4.5 stories of mixed use on the east side. This is again south of Clark Street, and then smaller scale stuff on the narrower lots to the east as you get up towards Clark. And I'll just show you, the planning board has been studying, how much mass do you really want to have on the street? What does that do to the visual qualities of the corridor? The height really has to relate to the street section. And so you'll see this, and then I'm going to go to the next one, and I'll just go back and forth. You can see we've looked at, with taller buildings, having them set back a little bit further from the street. So when you get 4 to 4 and 4.5 stories in this very limited sub-district area, you can move back from the street and create a more exciting public realm, and I'll show you some other pictures of that. But if you get down on the street here, this is looking up the corridor with the buildings right on the sidewalk line, and we're making sure that we're allowing for a 12-foot sidewalk in all instances here at a minimum. And then, but if you move the larger buildings back from the street and reduce the massing perhaps to 3.5 stories, on the other side, it begins to give you a much clearer sense of an appropriate scale for the corridor. This again is the tighter vision with 3.5 stories of mixed-use townhouse-style buildings on the right, and then here it is sort of stepped back a little bit, creating a wider zone on the left and more of a kind of a 2.5-story townhouse on the right. And if you get down into the street with that extra width that you would have with the larger building stepping back, you can now understand this sort of program public realm here where you would have outdoor dining opportunities, urban furniture, places for public art, et cetera. So it can create quite a nice environment. If certain scale buildings are right on the property line or right on the street edge, and others are appropriately held back to be consistent with their height. So anyway, without going through this, I've got about 2 more slides here. This is sort of a summary of where the planning board is currently with the thinking, at least on the most southernmost districts, and you can see everything tied together. We're not going to be stipulating FAR, which is sort of more of a conventional zoning approach to things, because in fact height, open area, and max building footprint taken together define FAR. And so by having very carefully thought through dimensional criteria for building siting and height, et cetera, it's actually taking care of that, and it's allowing us to give the upper ranges of the density that is being desired. And that'll change as you move up the corridor. The density that we're targeting on the southern end will change as you move north. And there are some other critical variables that are in play, like parking. Parking today in the GBD2 requires 2 parking spaces per dwelling unit. And I've heard from our community meetings that is like the most constraining aspect of potential redevelopment. And so looking at parking ratios that are more in keeping with the CBD or the MBTA type approach, where you're within a certain radius from a transit node, I think will do wonders for helping for parking. And then of course, where the parking is located is determined by mandating certain streetscape build-out frontage so the parking falls to the rear of the site. So last two slides, design guidelines are another big component of it. I've written a number of design guidelines. These are for the city of Newton, where you're looking at defining things at a sort of neighborhood or corridor level, then at a site planning level in the middle, and then at the building level, architectural, facade design, ground floor design, roofscape design. All these things will be integrated into the actual zoning code as opposed to being a separate document. And these are the types of graphics that we'll be integrating into the actual text. And you can see sort of the summary of our approach to zoning here. Essentially, we've done what a lot of communities like Watertown is doing now with Watertown Square, and Newton just did with their village center overlay districts. They're looking at what the architectural form and scale is, and what the public realm is that they want to define, and what's appropriate and contextual, and then they're sort of backing into the dimensional criteria after doing a series of test fit studies and visualizations, which is what we've been doing for the last year and a half or so. And hopefully we'll end up with our goals for density and streetscapes, et cetera. So that's kind of where we are. Here's the schedule of how things are happening, and we're working towards the September 23rd warrant article due date. Is that okay? All right.
Wow.
It's been a chill summer.
Not much to do. So another stakeholder meeting right after Labor Day. Public hearing was one. There's one coming up on Wednesday.
We have a public hearing on Wednesday, and then a public hearing on Wednesday, September 11th.
Are those, Taylor, are those two public hearings of the same presentation, or the different goals with those two
It will
hearings?
be similar presentation, trying to get more community feedback from where we are. I mean, there's still many options on the table. What you saw was just the most northern two districts of 7. So, so we need more community feedback. We need feedback from you all as well as you know. I think one thing, and Gary, correct me if, tell me if we are looking for, you're going in a good direction, or we are looking for just community feedback for what we're presenting and how the community wants to see it forward from here.
So I realize I asked you to go through that quickly, so that's on me. It's a lot to digest.
Of course, yeah.
And I know we have the slides, they got mailed out. It's hard when you're sort of toggling back and forth between the elevation and the roofs and the setbacks, like that's really helpful. I'm trying to picture that public hearing with 7 zones. And I'm not sure if there's a different way to say, the zoning change, this would look like this here. I mean, how do you unpack that for not just town meeting, but for public hearings to say, I'm good with the first 3 blocks, right? Or that all makes sense. And then if it just, scales down closer to Woburn, what does that look like? It's just a lot. So I don't know how else to convey it, but if there's ways to unpack it some more, that might be helpful. Certainly you'll have your work to do at town meeting, but.
I think that's actually the plan for this week is I could probably talk twice as long to those same slides and not have to even add any more content visually. And there would be a lot more detail to discuss there. But I think it's almost like we're talking about a case study here of looking at the first 2 districts.
Yep.
And that's probably, and people can sort of extrapolate in their minds for the balance of the quarter for now. And then I think at the second public hearing, hopefully we'll have the rest of them for people to understand how that did translate. But
I think another maybe useful thing on scale is, the west side of Maine, the lots are not as deep as the east side, but here's the height of the Burger King, here's the height of the Cleaners, here's the height of the bank, relative to what this new building might look like.
Mm-hmm.
So what does 3.5 stories look like? I don't know, like how tall is Town Hall? It's something, it's 4.5, I'm not really sure, but.
Yeah, that was really helpful for getting our heads around setbacks. The Winchester Savings Bank, I think, is a 10-foot sidewalk with a 15-foot setback. And that helped us be like, if it's gonna be 4 stories, we need a 15-foot setback, because while that's a pretty enormous building, you don't feel the shadow of it when you walk by it.
So maybe even that sort of overlay, that's what that looks like. Here's the savings bank. We all recognize it, which is a little, those streetscapes are helpful, but like, oh, I know that building.
Okay.
And I know how this next block of Burger King or the dry cleaners I can understand the setback, that's where parking is right now, it's out front, but like, what does that scale look like? And how big does that grow? I don't know if you can do that, maybe not before Wednesday, but just literally overlay or superimpose this new design on some existing buildings that we know, the tire, the apartments going on the other side. Just the thought.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Carrie was actually out doing measurements to figure out what current buildings were, so she could have that sort of idea in her head.
No doubt.
And,
I was using my kids for labor. Go to the building, take the tape measure.
no, but it was
Climb to the top.
it's a smart idea, because people understand what they already know.
Yeah.
Well, and I didn't know the numbers. I didn't, when you're in front of book and board, how deep is that sidewalk? Well, friend, it's 8 feet.
Yeah.
Now we know.
And we know-
Well,
and-
the sidewalk would feel much more.
And we know that's very tight.
Right.
And John brought that up at the last select board hearing about how the downtown Rotary area and South Main Street, the sidewalks are so tight that you don't get any sort of
Right.
community interaction there. And you guys are already taking that into account as you're looking at North Main Street. And, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and nitpick anything you guys have done, because I've watched your meetings, and I've seen you look at every single block, every single building, every single neighborhood that abuts on all of them, and you've played with all those numbers to see how any little tweak, even 5 feet here or there, impacts the space you have on the road, the shadow that you might cast on a building behind it. You have looked at every little thing possible, and that gives me a lot of confidence that you guys are going to be doing the best thing for North Main Street and the communities that abut it. And I know you have a lot more work to do. And there's details to figure out with the use and probably design and all that other stuff. But from where I'm looking, I think you're certainly walking down the right path.
I think one thing that would be, I think, helpful overall as you're anticipating town meeting is, what does it mean to change the zoning for what we see right now? And to me, that's probably like 50 years from now. I'm just like guessing, right? I can anticipate that we're not going to change the zoning and then wake up the next day and everyone's decided that they're selling their property to a developer who's going to pop everything up 4 stories on North Main Street, and it's going to be, a hugely different area. So like and this is like a form of place question, right? In terms of sort of changes to zoning like this, what is I think of visuals, sorry, so I'm like, what is it gonna look like when things change color and they turn different, and put the time lapse on it? But so that's how my brain works, and I apologize to everyone else for that, but like just a thing like that, we're gonna change the zoning, and in 2 years we'll see this, and in 5 years we might see this, and in 10 years we might see this. So it's not we're changing the zoning and flipping a switch that something is drastically different.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think MAPC has that map where they show unlikely to change, short-term growth likely, and dovetailing that. We took videos of each of the districts to orient ourselves. It could be nice, but just the tech
like
and then getting your video to work in front of town meeting is just always humiliating. So, figuring out how to sort of be like, this is the part, because you're thinking you want nothing to change, but when we show the video, you're like, a couple of those could be better. So figuring out when they might. No one's rushing in, I don't think. I mean, Taylor can correct me, but no one's rushing in to like build this corridor as seen on the screen right now. But
it also requires property owners to
work
together.
Right. Yeah. And even, I don't know if that's contextualizing, like we've passed the MBTA zoning.
Congratulations on
Everything,
that,
which is excellent, yeah. But, we passed MBTA zoning and everything looks the same.
Yeah.
It's not, we didn't pass it and there's suddenly this, like, something, greatly different.
It doesn't require change. It gives you the opportunity.
Kind of to go off that, because there were some people who were resistant to the MBTA 3A rezoning, and they didn't like what it might allow to have happen in this corridor. Have you gotten any feedback yet from actual developers about your current plans and why they might be more attractive to developers than what the MBTA 3A would allow?
So Less so developers, more so business owners who have been dying to open up some sort of shop that hasn't been allowed as a use on North Main.
That's good.
And that's been since we started this last year, or since I really started spending a lot of time on this last year, that's the most common thing. It's not, I want to come in and build as much as I possibly can. It's, oh, I want to open up this business that I've always wanted to, that North Main doesn't allow me to.
So there's business interest in actually making something out of this zoning changes that you're.
Yes, that's the
Great.
most common comment that I get, yeah.
That's encouraging. Yep.
Yeah.
I'll say that. Any other questions? Thank you. Sorry for rushing.
Great,
you.
thank you very much.
Appreciate it, though.
Appreciate coming in.
Thank you very much.
Good luck on Wednesday.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Thank you. Next up, the T Winchester Center update, hopefully a brief one. Hello?
How you doing? I'm well, how are you? Great, thanks.
Okay, so maybe a couple of things. You've asked for an extension to the easement. The easement currently expires next Friday for the spaces on Waterfield and Aberjona lot. So the board may or may not vote that this evening, but certainly want to understand how much longer you expect to go. So if you could cover just briefly how long you expect to be on that particular space, how your schedule is for opening in September for the southern portion, how the schedule is for opening at the end of December for the full station, and is there any expectation that the easement for Laraway Road would need to extend past December 31st, because those were coming up on the end dates of 2 easements, so I'm just curious how your schedule is progressing relative to that space that's currently being used. So I think those are my goals. I don't know if Beth or anybody else on the board wants to frame the request any other way. Anything more you want to hear? Okay. So if you could.
Yeah, opening by September 30th for the partial opening. That's the date. And so the easements, we would request that if we could go to sometime in October. I'm just throwing out October. It would really be helpful because we're doing some paving work there in the Waterfield lot and the Aberjona. You know, when we clear all of the laydown area out, and we're going to kind of move it into the Laraway Road to start focus on the north end. If we could have a few weeks, even to the end of October, I don't know what the board's flexibility is there, but that would be helpful. If not, we'll work with what you give us. And then for the final project completion, the north end, you know, we're not as focused on that date, to be honest with you, but you know, December is still the date that everyone's focused on.
Yeah, we're committed to the December date, and just to kind of echo what Nathan was explaining on the schedule, you know, we've covered a lot of ground, and I think everyone's focused on this 9:30 date and opening on 9:30, and the crews have been really, you know, stepping up over the past, you know, few months, and it's been quite challenging, but the team has really, you know, come together and covered a lot of ground, and especially, you know, like the weather, like in July and August, really hasn't helped us when we're working the long hours, and you know, it's like the mid-90s and for weeks at a time. So I mean, the crews are definitely feeling that, but we're committed to getting to this 9:30 date and opening the station for service.
So I think I'm going to let my, actually I'll say my piece and I'll go to Beth and then the rest of the board. So we went back through, we had sent over and said we were looking for financial consideration for extending that Aberjona Waterfield lease beyond August 31st, and now we're hearing you might want it not just for the month of September, but also into October. And the T said we won't pay. So you first occupied that land in June of 2021, with the first version of the easement was expected to vacate by March 1st of 2024. So, and then you came in June and told us that the July date wasn't going to work for the southern portion. Now it's September 30th. So good to hear you still think it's going to happen in September. But we're already months past when we expected to get use of those, certainly Aberjona and Waterfield back. Laraway has been closed, it'll be 3.5 years when it's all said and done. There's not just, the disruption to Saturday farmers markets, but day-to-day retail, right? There's lost parking meter revenue, there's lost parking permit revenue, there's lost parking ticket. It is costing the town not just the inconvenience of not having those spaces on 3 specific, very busy lots. We only have 4 metered lots in the center. You occupy 3 of them right now. And to understand that you want to go potentially not just beyond August 31st, but through September, potentially 2 weeks into October, maybe the full month. You heard you were here for the Sims Corner update. When we take easements on people's property, we pay them. So we would expect compensation to the town. You can take that back to your superiors, but this is far beyond where we thought we would be. I understand you had supply chain issues, you had scheduling challenges, the team they pulled resources. But I think, I don't know what the board's gonna decide to do, but even going beyond September 30th, right now it expires August 31st, which is next Friday. So 2 more months. We'll see. I'm not sure if we're in a position to vote that tonight, but at least it's good to know that that's what you're asking for. And I'll let Beth, maybe, if she wants to add in, and then I'll invite my colleagues to weigh in.
I don't have anything to add. Thank you, Michelle.
I would echo everything Michelle says. I've been on this board less time than everybody else, but I already feel like the MBTA's been like Lucy pulling the football away and just dragging on how long we've lost access to these lots. And there's not a day that goes by that I don't hear some resident complaining about it one way or the other. It impacts people getting around town, like Michelle said, it impacts the businesses, it impacts expectations and everything else. And the two of you just made a couple comments that don't make me feel very generous. Like, you mentioned how it's been rough this summer because it's been hot. Well, the project was supposed to be done before the summer started. And you said, Nathan, that you'll work with whatever we give you. I don't know why I'd be willing to give you more if you're willing to work with nothing more and just get it done faster. Like, this project has really dragged on, and the fact that the MBTA, yes, we like having a train station or 2 in town, but it doesn't seem like there's any sort of respect coming back towards the town from the MBTA. And the messaging that we're getting, the signals that we're getting is that the MBTA doesn't care about our town, it doesn't care about our residents. And I'm all for working together, but I think there has to be a little bit more of a back and forth here.
Yeah, I just know that I've worked on a few MBTA projects, and this project is not a simple project. We're 25 feet in the air. Everyone knows what it looks like. We have concrete tied to FRP, tied to steel, tied to precast. All this work is coming together at the same time, and now we're, at this point, we're tying in all the electrical, the communication, all the cameras, the safety. We're coordinating the inspections for the plumbing, for the electrical, for the elevator. So all this coordination happens at the end of the project. I'm sure everyone here has been through a lot of these projects, and it's not complicated, but it is a lot of coordination. And we've been trying to schedule this as best as we can. We've had a lot of obstacles to overcome. There have been quite a few challenges with the site, with the access, with everything that comes along with in a construction project and building, on a viaduct that's, I think it was built in the 50s or whenever it was built, but a lot of these a lot of these issues don't come up until the end or when you know about them, and that's what we've been trying to address on a daily basis. We're working with Keolis on a daily basis. I know Nathan has reached out to the, he's gone door to door to the business owners to talk to them, to try to let them understand, you know, what we're going through. And, you know, I think overall what we're putting together an amazing product. I mean, the way that the whole station has come together, and all I can say is that, you know, we're going to make that 9:30 date happen. Nathan alluded to, you know, whatever you can give us. So, I mean, if there's a choice for us, if we have to focus on station work instead of, you know, certain site work things that maybe we can get the station open without finishing certain site elements that we still need the easement for. That I think is, you know, the priority is going to be getting the station open. And, you know, if we have to come back and work in the easement area to finish those activities, that's what we would, you know, need the easement for. So I think that's kind of what Nathan was alluding to. But.
So when you say that you're committed to making that 9:30 date work, what happens if you don't? I mean, what assurance do we have that that date is actually going to work, and what is the town going to get in response if it doesn't? And I know you guys are probably not in a position to make statements on behalf of the MBTA. I know it has to go all the way up the chain,
Sure.
and it's not fair that you're the messenger, and I'm not trying to shoot you guys or anything like that, but I want you to see it from the town's perspective.
Yeah.
And if you're willing to say, like, you know what, if 9:30 doesn't work, then we're going to be paying you X amount every day past that we've taken your lots, I mean, that's something I want to be able to tell the people of this town.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that you probably cannot say that today, but you can at least take it back and run that up the chain. No, that's how we're thinking.
So Nathan, what's the probability, just between us, that you'll actually be done by 9:30 off the site across the street over on Laraway Road? Like, it just totally, all your stuff's out of there. You cleaned your room.
Right, yeah, well, just to explain a little bit, we are gonna be paving, you know, we're gonna do the station and then the curbs and the concrete sidewalks, and then we are paving part of, you know, the average owner lot and the Waterfield lot. So just to explain, you know, what you can give us, my comment is, you know, if we could have that time to pave and stripe those Waterfield lots on our way out, that's the only point I was trying to make. So, yeah, September 30th date is the date.
For the station to open, but not for the site work to be done.
Well, that's why I alluded to, if we could have a few weeks to get that site work done on our way out, that'd be great, but that's.
But if we don't give it to you, you still have to come back and do it anyhow, right?
We have to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I got it.
Yeah.
All right, I'm just trying to figure out, when are you really going to be done, like, just out of that area? That's all I really want. I was like, is it 10:15 or is it 9:30? I think hopefully you're close enough to end now. So you look at the trades, most of the surprises have been found, right? The elevated guys are mostly done, right?
Mm-hmm.
From a confidence level, like, how confident are you? Let's just take the hurricane, the tornado, earthquake off the table, like, just regular life. Everybody shows up to work. What do you think?
Yeah, we're confident.
Yeah, I mean, elevators are on schedule. Elevators are usually the critical path.
Right.
So they're on schedule. All
Yeah.
the roof is on except for one section along Laraway where the stairs are. There was 22 electricians there on site Saturday. I don't know. I mean, we're doing things all.
I'm not in front of you. I'm just. My question was just more like, can you like get out of there by 9:30, like out and across the street over the Laraway Road? That's all.
Does the state building inspector have to give you a temporary CO for and so do you have that final inspection scheduled with the state building inspector?
It's not scheduled right now, no.
Yeah, but that would be probably towards the end of September, is that your thinking, or?
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah, those last 2 weeks, we have the final electrical inspection, the plumbing inspection, the elevator inspection, so they're all happening over the course of those last 2 weeks.
So as as a project manager, as John said, like, let's take the hurricane off the table, but like, what would you be worried about if we're saying, like, September 30th, the station opens, right? September 30th, Bill is walking to Winchester Center instead of Waterfield to take the train. What are you worried about? That's gonna tip things off schedule.
On the easement side of it?
On the project side of it. So like, what would be the thing that would, you're very confident that it's gonna get done, but what's the thing that would keep you up at night would stop it from getting
What would
done?
prevent you from being done on September 30th? Not talking about hurricanes or, natural disasters. What would prevent you from being done on September 30th?
A lot of it's gonna come down to the inspections, the schedules. I mean, we can't really control the inspectors, so we have to have the work complete enough to schedule the inspection, right? So, I mean, as long as the inspectors, I know like the trades are talking to their respective inspectors early on so that we can get these things scheduled and not have to come up to a situation where, someone's on vacation or someone's not available. But as far as the work goes, I mean, yeah, the work is on schedule for 9:30.
So I was previously getting, and I haven't seen them recently, which might be me or might be because they weren't coming. I was previously getting a weekly construction update, and I haven't seen that in a couple weeks. So my question would be then, if the thing that's going to be the thing that delays the 9:30 is getting all the inspections in order, where you have to have a certain level of completeness to get all the inspections in order, when is that, if I was getting these construction updates, when would I expect to see the construction updates start to say, like, we're finishing small things, but inspections are, when would the construction updates start to say that we're not doing construction on the south, not north end? What's the timeline for that?
Is that the weekly meeting?
Yeah, so we have a weekly Monday call, is that what, you're talking about the notes?
We were getting a written weekly update,
On Fridays,
like accessibility, designs of the Winchester station, construction advisory. And then it would say, see the information detailing scheduled construction activity from July 29th through August 3rd. So it would give us like the upcoming week's activities. So when would I, expect that stops talking about concrete pours, utility installation, conduit, and start saying like finalizing whatever, or working on, the other side? What's the timeline for that if we see, hey, these construction updates are still talking about pouring concrete or doing this or that at this lot, that we are tipped off that September 30th is in danger?
Well, I think the lead time to get an inspector out there is, I don't know, is it a week or something?
Around there, yeah.
So, if we are lining up our inspections, let's say for that last week of September, and, or we're not lining up our inspections for the last week of September, then we're not ready. So I think that would probably, does that answer your question?
I mean,
Well, a
have
better
a
answer
project
would be-
manager, and your project manager has a project plan. So where in the project plan does it say, if we don't have our inspection, if we have not reached out to the inspectors, we are off schedule, things are turning red, we are not going to meet September 30th? And for a better question is, how soon in advance will we get the heads up that September 30th is or isn't going to happen, if it's not going to happen?
I would come down to the last couple of weeks probably.
I would say by mid-September, we should know if there's a problem opening up for late season. By that point, you know, we're not ready for inspections by that point, or get even close, you know, I think, you know.
Yeah, we're gonna know if we don't have if we haven't notified the inspector within 2 weeks of that 9:30 date,
Yeah.
that we're not gonna hit the date, because we have to set that inspection date.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, we don't meet on the 16th, but we meet on the 9th and we meet on the 23rd. So I think there's also, you know, by 3 weeks, will you know exactly how on track you are to tell the inspector? Because that's our next meeting, and I think, you know, any idea there of if this is still on track for September 30th or if it's not is going to be important too.
So are you suggesting that maybe they come back on the 9th?
Or we just get an update.
Or we just
Maybe
get an update.
Decision then?
Yeah, I think weren't we planning on coming back?
We come back every quarter anyway. I think September
Yeah.
would be our next.
I get your question. It's a go, no-go decision. It's readiness, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah,
But I think an update before close of business on the 9th, ideally by Friday on the 6th, but we meet again September 9th, so we'd like an update as to, and that's within 2.5 weeks of your needing your inspector to be on the hook. So we'd like a written update. You don't need to come back, but we'd like to know where you are with that. And I think relative to the easements, maybe the last order of business is, you know, to John's point, if you're done September 30th, is that possible? If it isn't, what is the date that you would like an easement to be extended to? Because a couple of weeks, the whole month, if there is a vote that this board is willing to entertain a vote to give an extended easement, it needs to have an end date. So if you want to just get back to us with those details, that would be helpful as well. And Bob, I don't know if anything you wanted to add over there from a project management or, you know, DPW side of things, but I wanted to invite you to.
Just on the DPW side, are the parking lots being fully paved?
The part that we've occupying right now, they're being paved and striped, yeah.
The full parking lot?
No, just the part that we're taking over right
So I think
that
it would
we
be helpful.
occupy right now.
We talked about this this morning, but I think if you could send us the final restoration plans, because I'm not sure that's my recollection, that was only partial in the Waterfield lot, but it would be good to know. So it would be good for us to.
Big parking lot, so to add the rest of it on shouldn't be all that expensive, so.
Yeah.
If we're looking at extending easements or whatever, it's something we should probably look at.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it would be
I'll follow up
helpful
with Beth on that.
if you
Thanks,
could
Bob.
send us those final plans for the restoration so we can take a look.
Sure.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right. Next up, Permanent Street Tree Committee. And after that, we will finally hear from the town manager, but one up,
Patty,
Mr. Miller.
hoping for a karma shift. Some metal to trees. I'm David Miller. This is Austin Whitman. We're here representing the tree committee. Just make a little bit of an announcement here. The members of the tree committee include Carrie Layton, who is obviously running the meeting downstairs, Julie Rubensteiner, who couldn't make it, she's working tonight, Ruth Tremarkey, representing the Climate Action Committee. Austin's our at-large member. I'm representing the Conservation Commission. I'm also the chair. We have some associates here. Tom Moore is our newest associate. We also have some town employees who are very much involved. You see DPW director, I see a tree warden with Bob. Jim Shattuck, deputy tree warden as well. Taylor is associated with us, that's just come through it. So thanks for letting us come in and talk. Just to start off, sort of even the level of knowledge here for everybody. That's right, can do that. The first paragraph of the public shade tree bylaw says that the town of Winchester finds that mature trees have aesthetic appeal, contribute to the distinct character of certain neighborhoods, improve air quality, provide glare and heat protection, reduce noise,
aid in the stabilization of soil, provide natural flood and climate control, create habitats for wildlife, provide traffic calming, enhance property values, provide natural privacy to neighbors. All those things are true, to be sure. The tree committee, as detailed in the bylaw, works with the select board of the DPW for the goal of preserving and protecting Winchester's trees so that we can maximize those benefits the trees provide. We're here this evening with two proposals to help operationalize this goal of preserving in particular, and taking the concrete steps that we're going to propose tonight requires the approval of the select board per the bylaw. So the requests we're going to make this evening are one, support for withdrawal of funds from the Peter Bennington Tree Fund as partial payment for Winchester's tree canopy assessment, obviously more details to follow, and approve new regulations to the public shade tree bylaw as proposed by the tree committee, more details to follow. So if you're next slide. Our first proposal is to have a tree canopy assessment done. A tree canopy is what one sees when you look from the sky down at the trees, so essentially from a satellite, which is what we're going to get proposing here in a second. This, when done, will be Winchester's first all-town, which is to say all corners of Winchester, quantitative look at our tree canopy from back when to the present day. So we're using data which is current, but data from the satellites is also available back to 2010. So we'll be able to see the changes that have occurred with our tree canopy over time. Maybe it's gotten less, maybe it's gotten more, both are formally possible. The company we've settled on is called Planet Geo. They are a software company which works with satellite data, which is as recent now as 2023, to turn that satellite data into a GIS-based layer of where the tree canopy is represented across town. It's available to us as a web interface, which is to say that any town agency department can put it on their website as a link, and anybody in town can open it up and see what our tree canopy is, and even turn the knobs and fiddle with the analytics of that. The data provides a map of tree canopy and land cover within, for example, census block groups. So as in that it's GIS, essentially anything that you can think of by way of parameter you'd like to compare that tree data to is possible. And so census block groups, public ways, et cetera. We kind of consider getting this tree canopy analysis done as the starter's gun for the tree committee doing its work. It provides a quantitative measurement, if you will. It's also, we think, the town's starting gun to deal with its tree canopy and tree population. Also, because not only is it that quantitative aspect, but in that it's quantitative and one can see the entire town, it allows you to rationally develop strategies for what you might want to do as your next step. So tracking large-scale trends about our trees, setting goals, and as we look down the line, measuring the effectiveness of any programs we choose to put in place. The canopy assessment would be a way to get at all of that. Next slide. So this slide, and I apologize, it's hard to see, maybe you looked at it before you came to this meeting, but this is an example of the kind of data we're going to be getting. This is Wellesley tree canopy analysis, and the different colored blocks are census blocks. That's the way they chose to look at in this particular layer. And what it looks at here is what has happened to the tree canopy in Wellesley from 2021 to 2023. So fairly narrow slice of time. The brown is where tree canopy has been lost. The dark green is where it's been maintained. And so you can see, for example, in Wellesley, a lot of tree canopy has been lost in a couple of years. And this is the kind of data we can get to think about. And again, we can go all the way back to 2010 to look at ours. And on the left are sliders, which allow you to play with the software and the analytics to get a much more refined look of what's happening, in this case, again, with tree canopy over time. And the next slide is a rather more interesting way to look at it. This is where are the tree planting opportunities in this example, Wellesley. And the sliders on the left are a variety of different parameters that are integrated into a decision-making algorithm, but actually very useful, which suggests the best places in the town of Wellesley to be planting trees. It looks at everything from economics to lack of trees and integrates them into an overall factor, which in this case is used as a pointer to where the best place to plant trees are. So it provides a strategic guidance, if you will, to the planting of trees. The next slide. Sorry, any questions? I'm trying to go fast because it's late, and I know you've all seen it all before, but, so the tree canopy assessment, the purchase of that, again, we're proposing Planet Geo, and I'll just mention parenthetically and quickly that we've looked at several other providers of this kind of data, and we've talked to a variety of experts, for example, the Esri people and whatnot, which manage the town's GIS, or at least provide the software for it, and they all say, go with Planet Geo, you get more information for less money, and it's much faster, so that's where we're going. The price is $10,000 maximum. The price can work its way up to $10,000 by the different GIS layers we happen to choose. We'll have to work with Matt Schuman and others to be sure we get the right set of those, but that's about the maximum we're looking at. This canopy analysis is the leading strategic goal of the tree committee. It's also prominent strategic action in the 2030 master plan, where the plan calls for the town to get an analysis of the tree canopy done, a tree inventory, and it identifies the tree committee and the DPW as the groups to get that done. What we're proposing for this $10,000 price target is $5,000 from the Van Aken Tree Fund and $5,000 from an ARPA grant we'll be submitting this week to make up the difference. So half and half, the ARPA grant being matched with the money from the Van Aken Tree Fund. The next slide.
So before you go on that one, David, so $10,000 for Planet ITGO, an assessment to be done, and then is it a subscription that you could get it updated, you could log in 2 years out and have it run an updated assessment, or is it a one-time snapshot baseline and we're done?
Good question. This proposal for a one-time thing, we have access to the most recent data and software over the course of a year, and at the end of that year, we have to make a decision as to whether we want to pay a much lesser number, I don't have the exact number, somewhere around $3,000 to keep the site current with the most recent software or data, or we can just let it go up to that 1 year where everything stays static. We don't lose access, we just lose the updates. And we can decide 2 years out when the newer satellite data is available to go live with that. But I think from the perspective of what Winchester has done to date, which is not much by way of analyzing its canopy, this one look backwards in time to the present day will give us much guidance as to what we want to do, and we can decide at a later date whether, gosh, this is really working for us, we should keep it current, or we've got what we need, let's stop here. So,
just to jump on that too, the budget quote you have here says a 1-year subscription is $5,000. Where's the other $5,000 going, if not for the subscription?
there's multiple things there, Bill.
So you're including the additional canopy options as well?
Yeah, exactly. That's how you get the most value out of it, by picking which GIS layers you want them to use for you.
Okay. And that gets us to 8,500?
Yes.
What's the last 15?
TBD.
Okay. It's an honest answer.
Yes. Well, because we need to work through, for example, we haven't sat with engineering yet and asked them what are the GIS layers they would like to get in this. And each GIS layer costs $500, so we're leaving a little bit of headroom just in case.
Get 8 layers, Matt, that's it.
Make a great cake.
Next slide. So many of you will have heard of the Peter Van Aken Tree Fund, established in 2009 from the founding document voted by the Select Board for the planting, care, and maintenance of the street trees in Winchester. As of June 30, 2024, the cash balance is $25,000 and change. The amount of money that was put into the fund in 2009 was this $9,000 figure, their donation. Since 2009, no money's been taken out or added. Of course, it's under the care of the Committee on Trust Funds, I believe it's called. So it's been earning during that time. So the gain and loss of investments is $11,000 and change. The interest earnings, which by way of how the fund was created are all that can be spent at any one time, is $5,000 and change, and we're proposing to take out $5,000 of that, as we've said, to go towards approximately half of the cost of this. We're going to request from the Select Board a motion which authorizes the disbursement of those $5,000 for the canopy analysis, subject to being awarded the ARPA grant as the matching dollars for that. So that is a breathless summary of what we look to do with the tree canopy and how we hope to pay for it. Questions from the group?
I would just like to mention, so I was just going back and forth with town council and the comptroller about the use of the Van Aken Tree Fund for this purpose, and I think we need to do a little bit more homework on our side to ensure that the way in which the fund was created this is an allowed use to use it for the purchase of this, software and canopy study. So I think I would just ask the board to give us a little bit of time to kind of investigate. The fund was created by the board, and we just need to make sure that you can kind of expand the reasons for which it was created. It was for the planting and care and maintenance of trees. It seems like this might fit in that, but I think we need a little bit of work with council and the comptroller to ensure that that's the case. So.
Okay.
So say that again, what's the practical aspect? I wasn't hearing everything you're saying, Beth.
So
I heard the council and
yeah, so there's and I had Stacy dig up kind of the original creation of the fund. It says the fund will be created primarily from private donations, and its income shall be used to plant, care, and maintain street trees throughout the town. So we just need to work with council to make sure that the use that you're proposing, the funds, fits within the reasons for which the fund was created.
So that means we can't vote now? The council's sitting right there.
Yep, we may not vote tonight on that. We may want to just make sure that the comptroller and town council, comptroller hasn't had a chance to do, so we may be postponing, but we do meet on the 9th of September.
Well, so for the benefit of the street tree committee, who would like to submit to the ARPA grant, which we have a deadline of a Friday. What advice should we
You
provide?
can certainly ask for the whole amount as part of the ARPA grant, and then if on the 9th we've kind of resolved the questions about the use of the fund, then, you as the board, like the total dollar value is not going to change, right? It's just the sources. We could make that, split it that way during the vote and review of the ARPA grants.
I guess I would say that from our perspective, we certainly read those words, and our interpretation was that the canopy analysis is something which is required and relevant and supports the planting, care, and maintenance of trees. Right? So in its absence, we're flailing a bit. So it struck us as not being much of a reach to position this withdrawal of funds for this purpose. And I'm not quite sure why we can't just answer the question right now, if I can be pushy.
I think it's because we want a more authoritative analysis by our town council, just to make sure we're not accidentally overstepping anything here. And I mean, I agree with your interpretation, but this is why we have town council, just to make sure we don't make a mistake. Better to.
Okay.
And we don't normally put Jay on the spot to make a decision on the fly on a Monday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, you can be pushy, I appreciate that, but generally we wouldn't do that to Jay.
Okay. All right. Well, we will then submit the ARPA grant for $10,000. But if the ARPA grant falls through because it's too much money, then we're not going to get tree analysis done, which means it's a pretty significant ding in multiple strategic plans. So.
And we're making ARPA decisions after the 9th? On the 9th? I forget my schedule.
So everything's due on the 23rd, and I
Yeah.
think the goal is to kind of review them. I think Anthea
Right,
and
Anthea
Bill
Bill and I were going to do an initial review to bring it on the 9th.
Okay, so we'll know something. We'll know a few things by then.
And how will this resolve itself? I understand the process you want to go through, but is that we're invited back to another select board meeting, we'll get an email, or what's the deal?
I mean, it seems like then on the 9th, I guess on the 9th we would discuss potentially both town council's assessment of this, which hopefully we wouldn't be an issue to have by the 9th, as well as the review of the ARPA grants and award of the ARPA grants. So I think we would consider the assessment from town council prior to looking at awarding the ARPA grants, if that.
I think that would be fair.
That makes sense, and I mean, I would also say, you know, we could make a motion, I know it's on your next slide, I was looking at it. Make a motion that we approve that if town
Contingent
council.
on.
Contingent on town council's assessment, and then we could just get that assessment and have the motion approved and let them know ahead of time.
Like that?
How does that sound, Mr. Tellerman? You may, please. I called on you, so please do. I mean, I like the idea of a contingent kind of vote, but I want to just run it by town council on that one.
So on the interpretation of the language, I think it can be read literally or more expansively. That's not, it's more of a policy question. And when the fund was created, and I'm not exactly sure, the questions I have is like, what kind of fund is it? Is it a gift fund or whatever? But it was created with that specific purpose. But the allocation of the fund, I think the select board can make recommendations, but they kind of divorce themselves from the expenditures. So only the trust fund commissioners can allocate income. It's their decision. They do so at the kind of the request and supervision of the DPW director, who consults with the tree committee. So I think it's all, what I don't want to do is suggest that that you have the authority to make that decision and then the money's going to flow from that, because you put it in the hands of the trust fund commissioners, which is not unusual for a trust fund. I don't know how it got into that fund particularly, because I haven't seen all the background, but they operate independently. Like when there's a gift in a will, then that's what trust fund commissioners do. If it was a straight gift to the town and it was treated just as that under the gift statute, that would be what the select board would do. So
you think we may not be the appropriate body
I think
to
you
release
could,
those
I
funds?
think you could be helpful, but I don't think your vote is that important. If it's an allocation of income or principal.
We're not that useful.
Exactly. But yeah, it sounds like we can give a strong suggestion to the trust fund administrator.
Dave, why
I
don't you
think
just apply
so.
for $10,000, see if you get through there. If not, default, see if we can get it from the trust fund. If not, come back to us, because you're not foreclosed from coming back to us and asking for money from ARPA if you don't get approved for the community grants, right? I just think it's cleaner, faster, you're gonna get an answer sooner.
So,
Well, his fear, I'm sorry to put words in your mouth, is that there's competition for the ARPA funds, and he's trying to use something which is, there's no competition over, and that's been unused for many years.
Yep.
And that mean, and then by going for a lower amount from the ARPA funds, he's more likely to get it.
and call it the rules of the ARPA grant process seem to indicate that getting matching funds was helpful,
Yeah.
Yep.
right? So here we are.
I applaud everything David is doing right
Right,
now.
I know, well, I was indicating I'd support it outside of the community grants program, that's all I was saying.
So if I could distill what I think I'm hearing, and I certainly read the same words that Jay is making reference to, which is that, and I was not coming to you actually for approval, and if I use that word, I was really for support, so
Okay.
that the fund,
Okay.
the trust fund people would get that message, that Mr. Lavoisier would get that message, who we've already talked about getting this done, and Bob's opinion, sorry for putting words in your mouth, is if we can get the money in his budget, he is very happy to support it. Right,
So a motion of support might be appropriate in our advisory role, not binding,
Right.
but a motion of
and
support
then
might be welcome.
If someone
Okay.
comes to me and asks, is a tree canopy assessment kind of logically accessory to those three other things? There's a little bit of a disconnect there, but ultimately that's a policy question I'd leave to the trust fund commissioners and the DPW director.
Okay.
So Beth, when does you have to spend the money by what, 11:30, or the money reverts back through the community grants program?
We said 60 days from
Yeah.
the award, anticipating the awards around the
11/15,
23rd. So,
11/30.
yeah.
So,
November.
does the trust fund meet on a regular basis so you could get the
They
approval?
meet monthly.
Okay, all right, that's why I was just
And
concerned with
Stacy,
time
by the
standpoint.
way, Stacy's always at their meetings, of course, yeah.
Okay.
They were supposed to be meeting this week.
Voice of truth.
Changed. So it might be next week, so
September?
we might actually have time.
Okay.
They were supposed to be Wednesday, but they're not.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Andy was
So-
the person who communicated.
So I think we can make a motion of support, and I think we need to let a few other things play out. Sounds like that's about all we're authorized to do at the present time.
To do a motion
We're
in
not going to
support?
give away the ARPA community funds tonight.
Well,
and
if you read
we-
it, it says, be authorized by the head of the Department of Public Works after consultation, so I was kind of looking for your support,
Yeah,
so.
okay.
All right. I will make a motion in support of recommending a disbursement of $5,000 from the Peter Van Aken Tree Fund for the purpose of funding a canopy analysis, and with the hope that it will be matched with ARPA funds.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Jay.
Thanks.
Here comes the hard session. No, this should be easy too. Quotes. So the second proposal we'd like the select board to consider is two regulations to be added to the public shade tree bylaw. Per the bylaw, the tree committee's, one of its roles is to make regulations to, as all regulations do, clarify the implementation of the bylaw. And we have focused on what I call trying to operationalize the language of the bylaw, particularly the language which calls for the preservation and protection of Winchester's trees. So we've put forward two regulations, one of which requires that the town do a tree inventory on a regular basis. We proposed on an annual basis here, and suggested several different methodologies to get that done. So with the tree canopy analysis we've just talked about, that would be sort of a starting point, and then on a regular basis, we will update that by the best methods available to us, perhaps a satellite data, perhaps actually a count of trees that were lost. Working with the DPW, we can do that, we've done it in the past. So that's the first proposed regulation. And then the second proposed regulation, the next slide, is to in fact work on the definition of preserving and preservation as used in the bylaw to mean no net loss. And that, that phrasing makes clear that the least goal that the town will have in its working towards preserving Winchester's trees is that we'll strive to have no net loss of these trees. And of course, we're referring to public and town trees. And this will be monitored by the tree inventory. So this is in line, as you say here, with a sentence which appears very prominently at the beginning of the bylaw, which is, it is desirable to town plant more trees than are removed to compensate for tree losses and the length of time to maturity. So we think that by way of elaborating the concept and helping to implement the bylaw, this no net loss concept makes sense. The last thing we would point out is the last sentence is that it puts a responsibility on the town in terms of achieving the no net loss goal of the town, as we phrase it, adopting an operational stance of regular tree planting in support of achieving the no net loss goal, which again is consistent with the it is desirable phrase. So those are the two regulations we're looking to put forward. We think that with these, as part of the bylaw, there'll be more clarity as to what both the tree committee and the town are to do to preserve and protect Winchester trees. So happy between myself and Austin to answer any questions you might have about this, but these are the two asking you to approve.
And so the bylaw already exists, but these regulations are select boards to enforce. These changes in words are, were they to be adopted, do not go back to town meeting, right?
Correct.
They just become part of the bylaw.
If you approve them tonight, they are approved.
Not part of the bylaw, just standalone regulations.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct, yes.
And there's currently no regulations that
regulations,
exist,
no.
yeah. Can I ask a question, how you would differentiate the canopy study from the tree inventory? Because those are two very different things, right? Like,
They are
when you
different
take down a mature tree, it's a loss of canopy that will take years to replicate. So are
Right.
you looking to preserve
So we try-
canopy or preserve the number of trees?
obviously important question, Beth. We try to capture in the language in the inventory that there are things to be worked out to have that happen. You are absolutely correct that if you lose a large mature tree from the canopy, there's no easy way to replace that. If you look at it absolutely quantitatively, there are papers that describe how you calculate an equivalent number of X caliber inch trees to a large mature tree. Generally, those are going to be way more trees than we can possibly plant, as you might imagine, because it's a volume consideration, right? A 50-foot maple tree equals a lot of small 2-inch trees. So that's why the no net loss goal is somewhat qualitative, even in all this discussion of quantitative. It's something we strive for. It pushes us ahead to plant trees. But we may never get there. We'll do our best, but that's, and there's no time frame, there's no budget requirements. It's a goal to achieve this. So on an annual basis, once we've got this canopy analysis done, which will be, from satellite data and largely quantitative, what we have to do is work with the DPW and the methods available to us to come up with an approximate number of public trees that are lost and work from that. And that's the best we can do right now. As the days, weeks, months go by, we'll hope to refine that so we have a better number. But regardless, the reality is here in Winchester that in any given year we lose more trees than we plant. And if we even just replace the ones that we've lost, the ones that DPW picks up, the one that DPW cuts down because they're dangerous, just replace those, we will be achieving more than we're achieving now. Right? So that's kind of where we're coming from. And we hope that as the years and the technology goes beyond where we are now, we'll do better than that. But, tree inventory, and all of our neighboring towns have tree inventories, we don't, is literally where some group of individuals have walked up every tree in town and counted every tree and put it on a GIS map with a little 3x5 card explaining what that tree is, where it's located, its health, size, blah, blah, blah. We can't do that. So this is the best we can do with the means we have available now. So that's what we'll do.
Paul, how much of your time as tree warden? Jim, of your as the deputy?
Jim's is probably more than mine. Runs out and looks at the trees a lot more, but it's more than you would think. We get a lot of calls. I mean, daily we're getting calls to go look at trees. So we keep a pretty good inventory of the number of trees we take down. Everything is cataloged, so I mean it's a good amount of time.
And what's the DPW's policy on replacing them?
So we really don't have a policy on replacing them.
Okay.
We've been holding off right now because I know MWRA's given us 170 caliber inches.
As many as that, yeah.
Yeah. So we will be installing a lot of trees and bushes this fall. So we try in the last summer, I think we put in somewhere in the vicinity of 25 trees, off the top of my head, but it's a great goal to try to replace as many as we take down.
Yeah, I think it's important. It's not just the planting of the tree, right? Once you putting a new tree in takes a lot of maintenance after it's planted, and you see with all the projects we've done over the years that only a portion of those trees survive that we plant, even when we do have maintenance. So I think that's just important to consider as we think through this, right? It's not as simple as taking a tree, putting a tree in, and walking away.
100% survival rate. Okay.
I have a question. I called you. I called you about trees. So my question is actually, there was all the willow trees in Davidson Park, and during the last storm, a big branch fell off. So that's a piece of canopy,
yes,
right? The tree's still there, but it's lost what would be, I guess, on satellite considered canopy. So does that factor into, a full tree is not removed, but a portion of a tree is removed? Does that factor into any planting, or is it really like?
We have to work that out, but I mean, my off the cuff remark would be that would not count. The tree is still alive; it's still there.
Mm-hmm.
Willow trees are problematic to begin with, as you know, but we would probably count that as a live tree.
And when it comes to the canopy analysis, it's kind of a best guess estimate as to how many trees you can capture through that. And
yeah, the software, the AI of the software can kind of get you close to a number of trees, but it's mostly just the expanse of the leaves.
Yeah. But all of this together does, I think, at least two things. One, it creates a vehicle through which we are thinking about our tree inventory every year, because you're putting a budget item which might not get funded, but it's there, so it gets considered every year.
Decide one way or another.
Yes. And then you're also creating data. And we're going to be able to better track how many trees we're losing and how many trees we're maybe gaining every year. And that seems very helpful to me as we have things coming into town, hopefully like the CPA, where you'll be able to use this data to promote or pitch projects. And you can say, hey, we lost 10% of canopy coverage in precinct 6 last year. So we want to get some CPA money to replenish that. And we'll be able to use that money more wisely and use it more effectively because we're getting data through these programs. Right. So it seems like a good shift in thinking or just inclusion in our thinking. And it seems like a way of making better use of funds that we're hoping to get through something like the CPA. But either way, better understanding the health of our trees around town.
That's correct. Thank you.
So two things I would say. So, how the CPA money is going to flow is not necessarily what that is. The town's operational stance of tree planting or funding is going to be potentially on the town manager's budget with FinCom. So any way it happens, I think Mr. Miller and the tree committee would be happy. Potentially different channels, but this sort of commits to a more specific dedicated revenue source that Finance Committee and Town Meeting then approves, which I don't have a problem with. But I just want to be careful. We don't want to put all our eggs in the CPA basket. I think this is a more recurring, predictable funding source is what you're seeking,
totally agree.
right?
Yes.
And if there's a way for the Commissioner and Trust funds to throw off more income from the Van Aken Fund, like we can talk to them more often than every, 13 years, 15 years, whatever it's been. On the previous slide, on the inventory piece, one thing I'd reached out to Mr. Miller about earlier today was whether we're going through and counting on an annual basis. I realize it says best efforts to track. Do we want to just have it be on a routine, on a recurring or scheduled basis? Because I can picture a future board and a future tree committee hearing from somebody 5 years from now, you haven't done it in 3 years, and you're in violation of your own regulations. So given that we may or may not have a GIS subscription, we may or may not ask DPW to go around and count trees or get an army of volunteers and a map. I'd like to see that frequency defined perhaps less often than annual, because we may or may not get to it. I realize it says best efforts, but on an annual basis, I think commits us to something that we haven't even done the first time. So that's the one change I would ask.
Is that not what was just described of keeping track of?
Well, I think the tree
trees
committee
that-
expects, what currently they track is what comes down and potentially what's planted, but I'm not sure it's everything. Not everything is known potentially. That's what you take down, maybe not what's taken down, or what falls down.
Yeah,
right?
and the canopy study is every tree in town, public, private, DCR, right? And our inventory is just
Town trees. and-
town trees. So that's, it's apples and oranges in terms of comparability, I think.
Well, there is a GIS layer, which is public way, so we can sort of tease that out. But you're correct. Yeah. So, Michelle, I don't negotiate against myself. What's your proposal?
Oh. On a scheduled basis, no less often than every 3 years. That would be my schedule. That would be my suggestion. No less frequently than every 3 years.
Which leaves room for it happening every year.
True.
Yes.
But if it doesn't happen every year, you didn't violate your own regulation. My concern is just life happens, priorities happen, and I'm not saying, I don't know who's coming with their stick of, you didn't do your inventory on an annual basis.
Can you live with every other year, meet in the middle?
It's not about me. It's
Okay,
about
no.
this board, right? But I just think that giving ourselves flexibility to achieve it when we can and not never do it on a predictable cycle, but do it with some grace that you might miss an annual target.
So now, if we're gonna get into these weeds, if we're breaking out the different clauses here, a record keeping of trees removed or lost is something that should be happening on a continual basis, and it sounds like that's something that DPW already does.
Yeah.
When they
But
take
that's
down a
just the-
tree or when they plant a tree. And then the canopy analysis might be something that happens every 3 years. So, I mean, I don't want to give up something that Bob and his department's already doing.
Well, so as Bob just said, they are doing that, and
Yeah.
the data could be annualized, so I'm okay with a compromise, maybe Austin's okay with a compromise, which is every other year.
Do we know, so this is specific to public trees and town trees. Do we know how many public and town trees we have?
No.
No.
We have we know how many we lose.
We know how many we take down, yes.
We take
Yep.
down. Okay.
And then-
Right.
How do you define when it says public trees and town trees, what are you defining as a town tree?
Town trees are trees on town land, public trees are trees on public ways. So
Trees on
as I-
Davidson.
So, yeah, so we wouldn't know if
Public ways is
something
still town. For
falls
us,
in that.
anyways, we
Yeah,
consider
I-
public ways town trees, so.
It might be helpful to add that definition in here somewhere, because when
That
I
defi-
think of a public tree,
That definition is in the bylaw.
it is, okay.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, so
All right, group. What do we think? Do you want to take these up one at a time? Do we want more discussion? I don't, Mike's not here, not that we're making the world's most important regulation vote potentially tonight, but I'm curious the sense of the rest of the board.
I'm with you on that every 3 years on a triennial basis. I just think that annual, that seems pretty onerous. I just don't, there may be plenty of people who will do the David, but I just think it's more realistic from a commitment standpoint to do that.
I would defer to the tree committee and the tree warden and what they think is reasonable. If it's not annual, biannual as mentioned.
Be careful what you wish for, Bob, because if it goes in there.
Count every tree.
Can I ask a question about who's going to be responsible for doing the tree canopy analysis? So in this case, we're getting kind of a one-time funding source.
correct.
So if we're committing to doing a canopy analysis every year, every 3 years, where does that live for the future in terms of funding?
Sure.
Who owns it departmentally?
So right now, we're only committing to the 1 year, right? But even, that's a good question, Beth.
But
because-
the way this is written,
The way it's written, it says they'll track and update the combined inventory of public trees and town trees, and then describes methodology. I think we're getting hung up on, can we count all the trees, or that's what I was looking too, like, are we doing an annual tree canopy analysis? It sounds like that's one tool
That's one tool.
to
Right, so we're trying
to do this that we may or may not.
We try to identify multiple tools can be used to get us to a number. The canopy analysis data is only available even if we decided to buy it every couple of years, maybe every 3 years. And 2023 was the most recent, so it'll be a few years before it's available again.
right, but the way this is written, it says the inventory shall include, and further it says, and tree canopy analysis.
But as appropriate and available. Tree counts, record keeping of trees, root loss, and tree canopy. So that's the buffet of methodologies we will use to arrive at, in a particular year, a number of how many trees have been lost or gained.
Is this a shall may issue? Jason?
Yeah, a little bit.
When I read that, the way I would read that, it's that every year you shall do a tree canopy analysis.
So is your concern would be compelled to pay for it?
And
I think it's
who's
totally
responsible,
realistic, yes.
what department owns that?
Yeah.
All those questions.
I wonder
Does
if
it go in the
we-
operating budget?
Yeah, I wonder if we want to, as a board, take it back and give more questions back to the tree committee on implementation. Not that you didn't spend tons of time with all of us, because I know you did. But if we have additional questions on language, do we want to clarify that to just ask for a revision that we all understand? I wonder if that's the best course of action.
I mean,
Not
I think
that
it's
we're going to make the tree
I
committee
think it's
wait.
very simple on an annual basis for DPW to say, we
That's what's
took
been
down
cut.
X trees, we planted X trees.
Yeah, I'm considering, like, you pass it today, we have a base number, it's an arbitrary number, and then for us to keep the inventory going forward, it's the number of trees that came down versus the number of trees we planted. And then we have that delta every year to keep track of the inventory.
So how about we just strike tree canopy analysis? That's what Bob, I think, just said.
Yep,
So do we have to get this done right now? We don't, right?
correct.
So why don't we just rework this to a form that we all like, and then just come back and vote it quickly at the next meeting?
Well, obviously a reasonable question. But I think if we strike tree canopy analysis, then we will address Beth's concern, and there won't be any other concerns. So, again, pardon my pushing, but.
Well, I guess, I don't know, some of the urgency is to get it done at 10 o'clock at night after we've been here for 3.5 hours, and I'm going through this, and I'm like, okay, but then when someone tries to force me to do something, all of a sudden, then I'm gonna be no, and you want me to be yes.
Fair.
You know, my request is pretty reasonable. I'm just saying, hey, look and I wanna talk to Jake.
Okay.
And just ask him a couple basic questions, because I don't want to obligate the town's finances to something more than we anticipate. And it's not you. I mean, we totally appreciate all the work that you and your group have done, David. That's not it. It's just, I think we could just tighten this up a little bit to a point where we're more comfortable.
Okay.
Yep.
Sorry.
That would be my preference. I think just given where we're at, and it's our regulations that we're endorsing.
Yes.
It's your regulations that you've written, but I want to make sure that we're good, which I think we mostly are. I want to make sure that we understand what we think that we're committing DPW to do on an operational basis, because Bob works for Beth. We wouldn't direct Bob to do less than he's doing. We want to understand if this compels him to do more. Do we understand what that means operationally? So I think that's it.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I don't think that's too much time that's going to be needed, but we should be able to come back with something, I would think, by our next meeting.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for this.
And thank you for all of it.
That's great.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Stop signs. Oh, we can vote on the stop signs.
Well, now we're waiting for the town manager's report, but that's it.
Or the consent agenda.
Huh?
Consent agenda. We can vote on the stop
can.
signs.
We can do much else besides?
No.
Okay.
Town manager's report, any ARPA, and then I think we're mostly out of here.
Consent agenda.
Yeah. Thank you, Jay.
CJ, thank you very much.
All right, so Beth, you have the few minutes to do your report. I think we'll do a quick touch base on ARPA and fall town meeting. And I think the other updates, then we'll probably jump to consent agenda.
Okay.
So,
So first up, I have an appointment. In accordance with section 4-2B of the town charter, I've made the following regular full-time permanent appointment in the planning department of assistant town planner for Ian Sexton of Somerville. And I request the board waive the 15-day appointment period.
Terrific. I move that we waive the 15-day waiting period for Ian Sexton as the Planning Department Assistant Town Planner.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Congratulations
Many
on that
years
hire.
of work.
Very
Well,
excited.
Don't just congratulate me. There's many people over many years who
I knew you were getting close to a
have
candidate.
waited to
Happy to see that.
come to
Yes.
fruition. So yeah. Just a couple updates. We've talked quite a bit about the ARPA community grants. Those are due, just as a reminder for folks, this Friday. And then we'll be, like we said, back to the board hopefully on the September 9th with some recommendations. I just wanted to highlight, we got the final cherry sheet numbers. The governor signed the budget, final budget bill in July, and so happy to report that our revenues came in, state revenues came in as we were hoping with the additional money that was allocated for the school budget in Chapter 78 at town meeting. So Stacy did a really nice analysis comparing where we were at town meeting and then the final number. So we are positive $4,500 from where we thought we'd be. So
Better to be
don't
positive
spend
than
it all in one
negative.
place.
There's a tree that needs to get planted.
I just wanted to mention the Mystic River Watershed Association have been doing a study to look at extending the bike path basically from the Wedgemere train station along the Mystic Lakes. That report has been completed and is available. There's a link here in my update, and we'll have that on the website as well. I'm not sure exactly what the next step is in terms of funding, but I think we can all agree that it would be great to connect the Tri-Community Bikeway with other resources that DCR has to offer. At your last meeting, the board voted to issue the RFP for the town-owned property behind 955 Main Street. That RFP has been issued, is available starting last Wednesday, and we have given a deadline of September 30th at 2 p.m. for those responses to be received back to the town. So far, I've received 2 requests for people asking for that RFP. Town meeting schedule, just to reiterate for everybody, we've talked about it a few times. The warrant closes Monday, September 23rd. The board's going to vote, or is going to meet, I think we decided on October 10th, to vote the fall town meeting warrant for publication. The motions and backgrounds are due to the town manager's office on October 11th, and then town meeting starts first night, November 7th. And following up on, in the vein of town meeting, we just received notice from the AG's office that the important articles were approved by the AG, namely the MBTA 3A zoning, the small change that was made to the permanent street tree committee bylaw, and then Article 10, which is the creation of the CPA committee as well. So very happy to move those forward. Just a reminder for everybody, the state primary is going to be held on September 3rd. The town clerk is starting our early in-person voting here at Town Hall starting Saturday, August 24th, and then continuing through August 30th. So please come in and vote early if you'd like to. And then just a couple project updates. Eversource has been working hard on Cross Street. There's been some detours and other things, but all for good to complete that restoration. They are hoping to start paving by the end of the month before school starts. Obviously weather dependent at this point. A few other projects, we're working on the high school drainage project, which we hope to have completed before school starts. We just started this week, actually just today, the revisions to the intersection at the church in Waterfield for the drainage improvements out there. South Reservoir Dam and Rockwell Culvert project, we have awarded the contracts for both of those projects and hope to have work starting in either late summer or fall. And then finally, I just want to mention, we talked at the last meeting about the Lynch traffic calming improvements. We did rebid that project. Those bids were opened on August 15th. We had 3 bidders, and we had a low bidder with a base bid price of $1.96 million. We have, just as a reminder, $2.5 million. So happy to report we can award that project. We'll be working over the next week or so to look at our contingency, our construction admin, and decide if we can take any of the 3 alternates that we had put forward. So happy to be moving that project forward.
Yep.
And that's all I had.
So before we move on, can I just bring up a project that we've got bids on, and just next steps, which is the high school gym floor?
Yeah, that's the next under the ARPA. Do you want to talk about it now, or you want to wait till that agenda item? Or it's really the next agenda
Actually,
item, I guess.
just hold that thought for 1 second. Any other questions about Beth's report? Then we can absolutely pivot.
Is there a timeline for when Leonard and McDonald playgrounds will go out?
I don't have a bid schedule yet for that, but hopefully we'll have something soon. Yeah.
Any other questions? Nope. Then let's move into ARPA funding. Go ahead, John.
So the bids came in on the high school, and so we have a base bid of qualified bidder of $2.7 million. And I just took.
So just to catch everybody
Yes.
up, we did have a original low bidder who came in within budget and withdrew their bid last week, unfortunately. So the second low bidder is the 2.7 base bid.
So what's disturbing is we had a quote from, or a project estimate from August 11th of last year.
Yep.
Of $1.7 million. So a delta of 40% or whatever on this. I'm not looking for an explanation, it's just I think we have a lot more questions to ask on this, because one of the things that came up in a conversation along the way was that we were gonna reuse the hoops, the basketball, the backboards and so forth, and then there was a conversation that maybe, well, they're really, I don't know, was the contractor or someone else said it wouldn't really be worth it to move them. So apparently the cost to replace these is between $15,000 and $25,000 per hoop. So that could be $125,000 to $200,000 in additional expense. So right now, we have a delta of $563,000 of what we agreed to fund to what the actual project cost would be, including contingency. If you add another $200,000, now we're up to $750,000 of a delta. And so is this something that the school department's going to put on? I know you don't have the answer for that, the school committee, for sponsoring a request for $750,000 of free cash. There's not ARPA money for that, unless we didn't do Mystic, and we've got an obligation to people. Listen, I'm just raising this as, I think there's a lot more questions that need to be asked. And a very obvious one that came up to me the other day was, one of the reasons, as I understand it, why this cost has escalated to where it is the difficulty of getting the materials into the building because of the cross bracing, right? So I'm like, well, we hired a professional to come in and estimate this job for us. They are professionals. They didn't think about the inability to get in a full-size scissor lift, get materials into the site, and how much that would cost. So now I'm really questioning, what do we even know what we're buying over there? I don't know. Like, there's way more questions for me that have come up in the last week than when we present this as a sponsor at the spring town meeting. So for anybody watching, I have questions. I'm going to ask a lot of them, and I won't be sponsoring anything until I get better answers.
Okay.
There's just a lot there.
No, I agree with everything you just said, John. I am shocked that the difficulty of bringing materials into the gym was not considered by the person who gave us an estimate. That seems like a very obvious thing.
Absolutely.
If you can't fit a square peg through a round hole, you want your expert to tell you that before you start putting money out there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's shocking. So I'm glad you're asking the questions.
And I appreciate, I know, Beth, it wasn't clear if it was, we sponsored this with the FBPC in the spring.
Yes.
You went to school committee meetings, gave presentations, you presented at town meeting. Now with a $500,000 delta, even if we don't do hoops, is this an EFPBC/select board fall town meeting article type? I guess that would be their wish, but I think to John's point, I think we have some questions to answer, and is there any way to save scope or save cost, whether it's access, whether it's the full array. We took tours, town meeting members walked around the gym, look at the bare spots. Go back, John, a year, we thought there was a suggestion we'd have private fundraising, right? There would be other money coming in. That never happened. So we had a whole community benefit, youth leagues, adult leagues, all of our high school sports. We vote there where there's a need to do so. But what exactly do we need to be doing with this one? And not that we want to piecemeal things, but I think it's a fair question. And we didn't get private donations. We didn't get any other money. The select board authorized the release of overlay funds, $900,000 worth, and $1.3 million in ARPA. I think it's a lot to go back to the voters, though I think the town meeting wants to get this done, but that's a big nut to ask them to swallow, that, a fifth of the budget, we're just off by that much, right? So, I don't know who we get the answers from, but I can take that up with Beth tomorrow. We can come back and report back, but it seems like a miss.
And since I spoke on
Shot
behalf
and
of
a
it, I feel like a
miss.
dummy now. I'm like, I get a little explaining to your dad about why I'm so far over budget.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have other ARPA topics, Beth, or do you want to just weigh in on that one?
Give an update on the Mystic Heat. So we got a preliminary schedule from Weston and Sampson. They expect to have the 95% plans available to us September 19th for final review. They will not have the kind of additional investigation we talked about for the annex space completed in that time. The idea is that it could be done as an addendum to the bid if there are construction type items that need to be included. Otherwise it might just be operational items that they would work with DPW on. We will need a final vote by this board on September 9th if you want to move forward with this project. The idea is that the project will be out to bid October 10th, so we cannot go past September 9th. We need a final decision to put the project out to bid at that point. We have $900,000 worth of ARPA funds set aside for this. My concern is that if we move forward and the bids come in higher than expected, which is not an uncommon trend, the past few bids that we've put out, despite our best efforts to put solid numbers to things, I would recommend that we put kind of a backup article at town meeting, just to give us some flexibility,
Yes.
a placeholder, so that if we need to go and get, hopefully not much, hopefully not any, free cash, we have that flexibility, because otherwise we don't have another funding source.
Yep.
We do have a little bit of we have a little bit of money in ARPA that we haven't allocated, but, we all know we could spend it 15 million different ways, so.
Do you expect any reversions of any?
Yeah, so I have a few projects. The big one is this is my highlighted list of projects that might have reversions. The big one is the $540,000 public safety dispatch equipment. I have the police and fire chief working on getting me an estimate of where they are with that. I think it is very close, if not fully completed. So there's probably a little bit of money. I don't think it's on the order of hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's probably $10,000 or $20,000. But we'll go through that list and close out anything that we can.
Okay.
So I think, we just, the other piece I wanted to mention is included in your packet, a recent communication that we got from Eversource just on the timing of things, which I don't think is a surprise to any of us. We've sort of heard this, but this is the first sort of official communication we've gotten from them, that transformers are potentially a year out. So I want to start the communication with Eversource as soon as we know that we're going to go forward with the construction so that we can get the work order in, which requires us to pay money.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to start that process until I know we're going to go out to bid. So September 9th is our drop dead date to make a decision.
Do we need the school committee involved in any of that?
Yes, and you are invited to the school committee on Thursday?
So we are going to the school committee to talk about a different project at Mystic, working with Susan McPhee and Ken Pruitt and DPW. We've applied for a grant, $75,000 grant, to redo some of the windows at Mystic School. The total project costs are somewhere in the order of $120,000, and we're going to fill it with the Energy Management Committee has committed, I think, $27,000, and the Recreation Department has committed some additional funds to bridge the gap. So we are going to the school committee to just because it is their building to confirm that they're okay with us moving forward that grant proposal. But I do think we had talked about there being kind of a joint meeting with the two boards to talk about the Mystic Heat project in particular.
And I'm still, I'm going to hopefully join Beth for that conversation on Thursday, but I also push for a joint meeting the week of Labor Day to understand where we are, because we meet on the 9th, so the week of Labor Day, that's a Zoom call, in person, whatever we can pull together with people's vacations and the like, to get a final up or down on if we're, an indication, I think, on Thursday of investing money in windows in the building perhaps is a good precursor for the willingness to invest money into heat in that building. But the window grant is a separate track, separate funding source, so we're going to see what reception we get on that proposal on Thursday.
I sit here and my head spins around like if I look The Exorcist, like Linda Blair, and you'll get that, Michelle.
I get it.
All right. What's the school department?
I'm not that young.
We both went to Georgetown.
Is going to why would they oppose this? I really don't understand why the school committee wouldn't be in favor. Because what's their plan if we don't do this and it flames out? Is it to have Pete stay there and put a pup tent up and then just babysit it? I mean, I don't get it.
This is why you're not going to the meeting on Thursday.
That's why you're the chairman. I'm Batman. No, I'm Robert, I guess. No, but you can't answer that because you're politically correct. Okay, I get that.
But one thing I talked to the school committee chair about in our joint meeting, which is what we're trying to schedule, and we are hard up against the September 9th date, is if we don't know the disposition of the school by September 9th or the end of this calendar year, could you prioritize your facilities master plan that town meeting just funded to tell us the disposition of that school? Like, can there be chapter 1, the early release? Can we take that up sooner than later, not have it be the last facility? So I think there's some agreement and interest in doing so. I don't know when we're going to have that final answer.
Okay, but if that's like a year or two from now when they get all their studies done, in the meantime, we have a heating system that we've all looked at because it looks like it's on its last legs. What happens to all the parents and their kids who could potentially get displaced and other places are full? I don't really understand the thinking behind this. So I've said a piece in that. I'm glad they're putting money into windows, but I'm just...
Well, we're not sure yet. That's the hope on Thursday.
Okay. So, but Beth, the other thing is Nick said he did have some money. Now, I don't know if it's all gone to allocate towards the heating system.
He does. I don't know how big that number is. It's
Right.
not
thought it was
He had
$100,000
mentioned it was
$200,000.
part of the, one of the
EEC
EC
grants?
grants that they were getting, that is an appropriate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, to be fair to Nick, Rec has worked very hard
Oh, yeah.
to get their finances in order, and he's kind of been setting this money aside. But he has, the Rec has no permanent commitment to being in that building. So for the Rec department to fund these improvements using a substantial amount of their grant
Payment,
funding, that's a big investment in a building.
It is, except the fact is they don't have any other place to go.
They don't
They
have
could
any
go
other
to
place to
Parkhurst at some point, but that's the school department, the school committee's
Also
choice.
tied into that same plan.
So, yes, exactly.
Yes.
That's all. I mean, and if it's changed, it would just be, if his position's changed, which is fine, it would be good for us to know, so then when we're thinking about what to do, how to present this at town meeting, we should know that.
Yeah.
Because, as we said from the beginning, it would always be good if everybody threw in collectively and tried to solve this problem.
Yep.
And Nick's position hasn't changed. In fact, he's trying to find revolving fund
Yeah.
money and everything else for windows, heat. Friends of WinRec, no, they can't fundraise that quickly. Yep. Okay, so maybe that's a pivot to fall town meeting articles. Beth, you were saying a placeholder potentially for Mystic Heat if we need to. We don't know if there'll be a placeholder for a high school gym. There's also, I sent a draft of potentially FinCom bylaw change. We don't need to get into that tonight. Mike's not here, though we did work on that together. But we can take that up at a later meeting, but just a language change
Okay.
On membership, just compared to, I think I went to like 8 or so towns. I went to towns of similar sizes. I stayed in the town space, not the city space. So you have sources you all can take a look at, but at least you know where I got it from. So some are from, doesn't have to be a voter. It looks like just a resident. This could be a FinCom person, or you have to be a FinCom person and be, left-handed and blue-eyed and every other thing. So we can, we need to move forward on some change, but I think that was at least the first example, and you have some other sources. So I don't think we need to debate it tonight unless you want to, but I have that in there.
The other one I just wanted to highlight was the health insurance stabilization fund.
And that's rare good news.
I don't know how much Stacy has just closed Munis on Thursday of last week, so we don't have kind of the final reversions for FY24. We will have a little bit of money left over in the health insurance budget. So we'll need to decide whether we want to put an article on. We do have $240,000 currently in there. I did have a preliminary conversation with Maya last week about our FY26 health insurance numbers, and it's trending as we kind of expected, which is
8 to 10.
10.
10 to 12.
10 is the number, 10. And it's not just Winchester. I think we had some numbers from last year with GIC going up 8%. So I think we should expect, we've done, we've kind of done the I want to call it low-hanging fruit, right? It was all, none of it was easy, right? We switched plans. We did the Medicare buy-in, which was a huge amount of work for our HR department, so I don't want to minimize that, but
That was huge.
those were kind of the things we sat down over the past few years and said these are the things we can do to get rate decreases, and there's not those items on the table for us anymore. We've kind of done those things. Hopefully some of those things we've done with the Medicare buy-in long term will reduce our claims, which obviously impacts our renewal rates, but there's no easy, we'll give you 1% rate decrease if you do X anymore on the table. So,
And the last thing I would say to that stabilization fund article, that depending on what that number is, and we want to move it in for future expenditures, which we had mixed success with last year at the town meeting, I would say. But Beth and I and the comptroller and the FinCom chair sat down last week and had a conversation just sort of going into the budget season, going into the year. Beth brought up health insurance stabilization with the notion of what we tried to do last spring was use some of that money to balance some of that health insurance budget. So it's the same concept. Whether town meeting gets behind it, whether FinCom gets behind it, we'll see. But we did have a chance to sit down with Jeff and just talk broadly, like growth targets and spending goals and collaboration with the schools, and I think we're gonna try to have, quarterly budget meetings. So that's probably not September, we have a lot going on in September, maybe it's October, but getting people in the room, capital planning, FinCom, ourselves, invite them to the table, or just like, we've had budget summits in January, but not just once a year. So we haven't figured out the frequency, but just touching base, we have Stacy's reports, this is how we're doing revenue-wise, but what are we seeing in terms of trends? What are we seeing in terms of borrowing? What are the things that are coming in that can inform the budget that Beth will prepare, and what direction do we want to give Beth? So it's a good conversation, it's a good start to the year, and we're going to try to do it more than never. So there's that.
If you're a town meeting member, you're gonna wanna know, okay, so can you just tell me in total what you guys are coming to me and asking me for, whoever these guys are, in the form of free cash?
Yep.
And then, that money that money's gonna go to the stabilization fund? Why don't we just pay this bill with it, right? Isn't that?
Could be.
Yeah.
Right, and we're trying to build it into what's the longer term, right? Of health insurance is a very volatile, it's a volatile cost, so yes. That's all I want to say, was at least, I think we'd promised to sort of sit down with all the committee chairs, and it just took a little while to get between vacations and things, but it was gracious and grateful to Stacy and Beth for making the time, and for Jeff, the chair, as well.
Good conversation, for sure.
All right, anything else on fall town meeting, which is right around the corner? Okay.
I mean, I think my goal is to try to get some draft articles ahead of you, or before you on the 9th, and then you'll have your final vote on the 23rd. Still outstanding is the municipal opt-in specialized energy code, whether the board wants to co-sponsor, sponsor, or take any other action related to that.
Yep. Okay. So the last two items before we get to the consent agenda, select board goals. I did an attempt, it's in your packet, to update where I thought we had made progress, where we're done, and where we shifted out some things. I think we need to set up a separate meeting to sort of work through goals, but I promised you that 2 meetings ago. Hopefully that reflects our collective understanding and agreement that yes, CPA did get on the town meeting. Yes, we actually have an economic development study. We're looking at town center planning. 3A got passed, so just went through with that, and those changes were noted in red. We don't need to dive into that tonight. And then we talked a lot about ARPA. The CPA working group, advisory group is kicking off on Wednesday. I don't know if anybody else have any other committee updates or any of our select board work we want to just give updates on now before we wrap up our business items.
There is a opening on the field management committee, so that's one of the openings.
Yes.
And they met last week.
Anything else? John's been doing some homework on capital, I can see.
Yes.
So, okay. So maybe we should move to the consent agenda then.
Yes, well, I move that we approve the consent agenda as printed.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. I vote yes as well.
No? No?
Nope.
Okay, I move that we adjourn the evening.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you, WinCam. Good night, everybody. See you in September.